"Alexis, don't do this here," my mother said. We were standing inside my sister's unfinished bakery on West Main Street in Mesa. There were folding tables covered with white cloths, trays of pastries along one wall, and a copper-colored sign that still had protective plastic around the edges. My sister Caitlin had invited relatives, vendors, and 2 people from the shopping center. She'd called it a preview brunch. The commercial loan officer sat at a small table near the front windows. His closing folder was open. The personal guarantee form was directly in front of me, with a yellow tab marking the signature line. My grandmother stood beside that table with an old file folder pressed against her chest. Mom lowered her voice. This is her fresh start. Caitlin looked at me like I was the one causing trouble. I remember putting my hand on the back of an empty chair. I wasn't trying to make a point. I just wanted something solid under my fingers. My name is Alexis Haynes, and I'm 31. If you've ever been called dependable when people really meant available, I understand. Please like this video and subscribe. To explain why that scene happened, I need to go back about 7 weeks to a Tuesday morning when Caitlin sent me a spreadsheet named Final Bakery Budget. It wasn't final. Nothing Caitlin sent me was ever final. I was at my desk in the procurement office for the city. It was a little after 8. I had coffee in a metal travel mug and 3 vendor renewals waiting in my inbox. Caitlin's email had no greeting. Need you to clean this up before Mom and Dad come over tonight. There were 4 attachments. One spreadsheet wouldn't open. One was a picture of a handwritten equipment quote. The other 2 had different totals for the same renovation. I texted her. "Which equipment number is current?" She replied almost immediately. "Use the lower one." Is that the accepted quote? It's the realistic quote. That answer told me nothing, but it sounded confident. Caitlin was good at that. She could make uncertainty sound like a decision someone else had failed to understand. I called her during my lunch break. She answered over a loud, grinding noise. "Can you hear me?" "Barely. Where are you?" "At the shop. They're cutting the counter openings." "Who approved the work?" "I did." "Did you sign a change order?" There was a pause. "Alexis, I'm not calling it a change order every time somebody moves something 6 inches. If it changes the price, that's what it is." She sighed into the phone. "This is why I need you. You know how to make all the paperwork sound official. I don't make it sound official. I make the numbers match. Same thing." It wasn't the same thing, but I'd had that conversation with her before. Different business, different spreadsheet, same impatient silence whenever I asked where a number came from. Caitlin was 34 and had spent most of her adult life beginning things. A salon, a mobile spray tan service, a line of scented body scrubs, holiday gift baskets, and then a custom dessert business she ran from rented kitchen space. The dessert business lasted longer than the others. She made beautiful cakes, and people did recommend her. The problem was everything around the cakes. Deposits went into the wrong account. Supply receipts vanished. She'd promised delivery before checking whether she had help. When an order went well, Caitlin posted photographs and thanked everyone who believed in her vision. When something went wrong, Mom called me. "Can you just look at this? Can you stop by after work? Can you lend her enough to cover supplies until Friday?" The amounts were usually small enough to make refusing feel mean. $100, $200. A Saturday afternoon fixing invoices. 3 evenings rebuilding an order calendar because Caitlin had been keeping dates in text messages. I didn't think of myself as rescuing her. I thought I was preventing waste. That difference mattered to me then. I told Caitlin I could spend an hour on the bakery file after work. 1 hour? She said. Yes. This is a big opportunity. I know. I also have my own job. She laughed lightly. You love spreadsheets. I don't love yours. You'll feel better once you see the storefront. I'd already seen it. She'd sent me 11 videos, including one where she slowly turned in a circle and said, "Can't you just see it?" while the camera pointed at exposed wiring and stacked drywall. The storefront was in an older shopping strip on West Main Street. It had been a sandwich place, then a tax office, then empty for almost a year. Caitlin had signed a lease before the financing was settled because the landlord offered her 2 months at reduced rent. Mom called that smart negotiating. I called it a deadline with keys. That evening, I drove to my parents' house after work. Mom had spread bakery papers across the dining table. Dad was at the far end with his reading glasses low on his nose. Caitlin had brought cinnamon rolls in a white bakery box, which meant everyone was already in a good mood with her. Mom stood when I came in. There she is, our numbers person. She kissed my cheek and reached for my laptop bag. "I've got it," I said. Caitlin was sitting in my usual chair near the outlet. She had her shoes off and one foot tucked under her. She pointed to the cinnamon rolls. "Take the middle one. It has the most icing." It was a small thing, and it softened me. That was one of Caitlin's skills, too. She noticed exactly what made a person feel considered, as long as considering them didn't interfere with what she wanted. Dad moved a pile of papers so I could sit. "What exactly are we doing tonight?" I asked. Caitlin looked at Mom. Mom answered, "Getting everything ready for the bank." "What bank?" "The one working with small businesses," Caitlin said. "Which one?" She gave me the name of a local commercial lender. I'd heard of it, but that was all. "Have you applied already?" "We've had conversations." "Have you submitted financials?" "Not officially." I opened my laptop. "Then what are these?" Mom pushed a printed checklist toward me. Business plan, personal financial statement, projected cash flow, equipment quotes, lease, construction budget, proof of owner contribution. Near the bottom, someone had written loan request, $180,000. I looked up. "You're borrowing all of this?" "It includes working capital," Caitlin said. "How much are you putting in?" $32,000. Dad stopped turning the page in front of him. I noticed it because the room had gone quiet. $32,000 from where?" I asked. Caitlin reached for a cinnamon roll. "My savings." I knew she didn't have $32,000 in savings. I didn't know exactly what she had. That distinction kept me from saying anything immediately. I knew that 6 months earlier, she'd asked me to cover a $900 kitchen rental because 2 customers were late paying deposits. I knew she still owed Mom and Dad for a used delivery van. I knew her credit cards had become a forbidden subject at Christmas. But I didn't know every part of her finances. Maybe she'd sold equipment. Maybe Mom and Dad were giving her money. Maybe the number represented expected deposits. I turned the checklist over and wrote $32,000 at the top. "What account is it in?" Caitlin's eyes moved toward Mom again. Mom sat down across from me. "That's the kind of thing we need you to organize." "I can organize statements. I can't create the money. Nobody asked you to create it. Then show me where it is." Dad cleared his throat. "Some of it is committed family money." "How much?" "It's being worked out," Mom said. I looked at Dad. "How much?" He removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Your mother has the details." Mom's expression changed. "Not much." Her mouth tightened, then relaxed. "Alexis, are you here to help or interrogate everybody? I need accurate numbers if this is going to a lender." "Of course they'll be accurate." "Then where did the $32,000 come from?" Caitlin put her cinnamon roll back in the box. "I knew this would happen." I looked at her. "What would happen?" "You'd turn it into a character evaluation. I asked about one line on your application. You ask questions in a way that makes people feel stupid." Mom reached over and touched Caitlin's wrist. "Nobody thinks you're stupid." I hadn't said she was. That happened a lot in my family. Caitlin would hear criticism in an ordinary question. Mom would comfort her for the criticism I hadn't made. By the time anyone looked back at me, I was defending a tone instead of getting an answer. I closed the spreadsheet. I'll need bank statements, tax returns, current debt balances, and actual signed quotes, not screenshots. Mom leaned back. "See? This is exactly why we asked you." Caitlin smiled again as if the last minute hadn't happened. "I can send most of that tonight. Send all of it. You don't need to be intense." "I'm not being intense." Dad put his glasses back on. "Let's just get through the checklist." So we did. For the next 2 hours, I went line by line. Caitlin estimated the number of daily customers. I lowered it. Mom objected. I explained that a lender would rather see a believable first quarter than a fantasy. Dad found the lease in a blue folder. The rent increased after the reduced period, but Caitlin's budget used the reduced amount for the entire first year. Fix that, I said. She frowned. That makes the cash flow look worse. It makes it correct. We found duplicate equipment costs and a missing permit fee. The construction quote excluded electrical work. Caitlin said the contractor had verbally included it. I wrote a note asking for confirmation. By 9, I had reduced her projected first-year profit by almost half. Caitlin stared at the screen. That looks terrible. It looks possible. Banks don't fund possible. They fund confidence. They fund repayment. Mom started gathering plates. Can you make it a little more encouraging without changing the facts? No. She looked at me for a second. Then she gave a small laugh. Well, that's our Alexis. The dependable one. The difficult one. The person who was supposed to make things safe without making anyone uncomfortable. I emailed the revised spreadsheet to myself and Caitlin. Then I created a second file containing every question that still needed an answer. Before I left, Mom followed me into the kitchen. You know how much this means to her, I know. She finally found something that fits. I'm trying to help. I just don't want you going into this expecting her to fail. I put my travel mug in my bag. I don't expect her to fail. You've never really believed in her businesses. I've done bookkeeping for 3 of them. That's work. It's not the same as belief. I looked at her. Mom was standing at the sink with her arms folded. Behind her, the window was black. I could see both of us reflected in it. What would belief look like? I asked. Being positive, not treating every little issue like evidence. Evidence of what? She looked away first. You know what I mean. I didn't. On the drive home, I kept thinking about the $32,000. At first, I thought I was being unfair. Families help each other start businesses all the time. Mom and Dad could give Caitlin their own money. That wasn't my decision. Still, Dad's face bothered me. My father was bad at direct conflict. He'd go quiet, refill his water, or suddenly remember something in the garage. His silence at the table had felt familiar, but not casual. He knew where that money came from, and he didn't want to say it in front of me. I reached my apartment around 10. I changed into sweatpants, washed my face, and opened my laptop at the kitchen counter. Caitlin had already emailed 2 years of business records. The subject line said, "Everything you asked for," although it wasn't everything. I started with her income summary. The totals didn't match the deposits. Several expenses were labeled personal reimbursement, with no name beside them. One large payment appeared twice under 2 different dates. I fixed what I could and highlighted the rest. Then I opened the personal financial statement she'd completed for the lender. Under cash and savings, she'd entered $32,000. Under liabilities, she'd listed 1 credit card. I knew there were at least 3. I sat back and stared at the screen. I wasn't shocked that the form was incomplete. Caitlin treated paperwork like a rough draft until someone forced her to commit. What bothered me was a note at the bottom. Owner contribution verified through family funds. Documentation to follow. Someone at the lender had typed it after one of those conversations Caitlin mentioned. I read it twice. Then I opened the checklist from dinner and looked at the meeting date. A pre-approval appointment had been scheduled for the following Thursday. Caitlin hadn't told me that. There was also a line naming me as the person preparing the financial package. Not assisting. Preparing. I took a screenshot. For once, I didn't text Caitlin. I didn't call Mom to ask why my name had been used before I agreed. I saved a clean copy of every file exactly as I'd received it, put them in a folder with that night's date, and sent Caitlin 1 short email. Before I prepare anything for the lender, I need the missing statements and the source documents for the owner contribution. I also need confirmation of what you told them my role would be. She replied 6 minutes later. Mom said you were handling it. We can talk tomorrow. I closed the laptop, but I didn't delete the folder. The next morning, Mom called while I was walking from the parking garage to my office. You upset your sister last night. She didn't say hello first. I asked her for documents. She was up until midnight worrying. I was up until midnight working on her documents. That's different. You don't get overwhelmed by that kind of thing. I stopped near the elevator and moved aside so 2 coworkers could pass. What did you tell the lender I was doing?" Mom went quiet for a second. "I said you were helping with the application. The note says I'm preparing it." "Well, aren't you?" "That isn't the point. I don't understand what the problem is. The problem is that you gave them my name before asking me. I knew you'd help." The elevator doors opened. I stayed where I was and let them close again. "What exactly did you say?" "I said my younger daughter works in municipal procurement and understands contracts." They were impressed. That explained part of it. Mom hadn't simply said I was helping. She'd used my job to make Caitlin's application sound more organized. "I don't work for Caitlin. Nobody said you did. You made it sound like I'm responsible for the package. You're being very literal. It's a loan application." Mom exhaled. "Can we please not have a fight at 7:30 in the morning? It's after 8. You know what I mean." I looked through the glass wall beside the elevators. Cars were moving along the street below. Everyone else had somewhere to be that didn't involve explaining the difference between helping and being assigned. "Send me the name and email address of whoever you spoke with," I said. "You have the meeting information. I want the person's contact information. Why? So I can confirm my role?" Her voice sharpened. "Don't call and make us look disorganized. We are disorganized. That's why you're helping." There it was again. The problem and the solution, both somehow mine. I finally got into the next elevator. "I need to work. Just promise me you won't send some stiff email that scares them." "I'm not promising that." "Alexis, I'll be professional." She was silent. Then she said, "Your dad's electric payment didn't go through. Can you look at that when you get a minute?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the timing was so exact. "Why didn't it go through?" "I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Have you called the utility company? They'll just make me sit on hold." I closed my eyes. "Send me a picture of the notice. You're a lifesaver." She said it warmly. The call ended before we returned to the bakery. At my desk, I opened the payment notice she texted me. The card on their account had expired. It took 4 minutes to identify the problem. I sent Mom the customer service number and told her what to update. She replied with a heart. 10 minutes later, Dad called. "Your mother says you won't fix the electric payment." I told her exactly how to fix it. She doesn't remember the password. There's a reset link. You know she hates doing that on her phone. I turned away from my computer. "Dad, I'm at work." "Right. Sorry. Whenever you get a chance." He sounded reasonable. Dad almost always sounded reasonable. That was how he placed something in my hands without appearing to ask. I logged into their utility account during my lunch break because I still had the password stored in an encrypted note. I updated the card, removed the late fee through the online chat, and scheduled the payment. Then I called Dad. "It's done. I knew you'd figure it out. You need to keep track of the expiration dates." "I do. Your mother changed purses and the new card got mixed up. That doesn't affect the card saved online." "Okay. Well, thank you." There was a pause. "Did Mom tell the lender I was preparing Caitlin's application?" "I wasn't part of that conversation. Did you know she'd used my name?" "I knew she mentioned your job. That's not what I asked." He lowered his voice. I could picture him walking toward the garage, even though no one was around except Mom. She probably got ahead of herself. "Did you know?" "Yes." It wasn't a dramatic answer. He said it like he was admitting he'd forgotten to pick up milk. "Why didn't you tell me? We assumed she'd talked to you. You were both sitting there last night while I found out." Dad didn't answer. I looked at the utility confirmation still open on my screen. "You called me because Mom said I wouldn't fix your bill." I didn't say it like that. She asked me to handle it, and I told her what to do. She gets nervous with online accounts. She's 58, Dad. She can reset a password. I know she can. "Then why did you call?" He gave a tired little sigh. "I don't want to argue with you." Neither did I. That was the problem. Every conversation ended the moment I required an answer someone didn't want to give. "I have to go," I said. "Thanks for taking care of the payment." After we hung up, I removed their utility password from my note. I stared at the empty line for a while before closing it. That was my first small refusal, although no one knew I'd made it. I wasn't cutting them off. I wasn't trying to teach them a lesson. I just didn't want automatic access to become automatic responsibility. That evening, Caitlin finally sent the lender's contact information. Her message said, "Please don't make this weird." I wrote a simple email. I explained that I was helping organize existing records, but Caitlin was responsible for the accuracy of her application and all supporting information. I asked the lender to send future requests directly to her and copy me only when the request involved the package I was assembling. I read it 3 times before sending it. Then I felt guilty. That's embarrassing to admit now. The email was ordinary. It wasn't hostile. Still, I sat there imagining Mom reading it and saying I'd embarrassed the family. The lender replied the next morning, "Thank you for clarifying. We had understood that you would prepare the package, attend the pre-approval meeting, and assist with financial reporting during the build-out. We will update our notes." I read the message twice. Assist with financial reporting during the build-out. That could have meant months. I forwarded the email to Mom, Dad, and Caitlin with one sentence. I did not agree to ongoing financial reporting. Caitlin called within a minute. "Why would you send that to all of us? Because all of you knew. I didn't know Mom said ongoing. You told me she said I was handling it. That meant the application. The lender didn't think so. I'm sure they use standard language. They said they updated their notes." Caitlin lowered her voice. "Can you stop sounding pleased?" "I'm not pleased. You've made your point." "My point is that nobody asked me. I thought this was a family project. Then why didn't you tell me what my part was?" "Because I didn't think I had to formally invite my sister to help me." I stood and closed my office door. "You asked me to clean up one spreadsheet." "Yes, because that's where we started." "Started what?" She didn't answer immediately. In the background, I heard metal scraping across concrete. Finally, she said, "The lender likes that you have a stable job." My hand tightened around the phone. "What does my job have to do with your loan?" "Nothing. It just makes the whole team look stronger." "What team?" "Alexis, I have contractors here. Then call me when you can answer." She hung up. For the rest of the day, I kept thinking about how quickly a favor had become a role. I'd spent years telling myself I was only stepping in for one task at a time. One invoice, one payment, one spreadsheet. Taken separately, none of it looked serious. Together, it looked like a job I'd never agreed to do. On Saturday morning, I went to Grandma Dawn's house to replace the filter in her air conditioner return. She lived in a small stucco house in Mesa, with gravel in the front yard and 2 large clay pots beside the walkway. One held rosemary. The other held nothing because Grandma didn't believe in replacing plants that died during summer. She opened the door before I knocked. "You're early." "By 3 minutes. That's early in this family." She stepped aside and handed me a glass of iced tea. Grandma was 79 and still kept a paper calendar on the wall beside her kitchen phone. She wrote everything down in blue ink: appointments, birthdays, what she'd paid the yard service, even the day she changed the water filter. I climbed a short step stool in the hallway and pulled down the vent cover. "This thing is filthy." "I told your father that." "When?" "April. It's June. I'm aware." I slid the old filter into a trash bag. "Why didn't you call me?" She gave me a look. "Because you're not the maintenance department." That made me smile. Apparently, I am. "What did Lisa ask you to do now?" I looked down from the step stool. "Why do you assume it was Mom?" "Because Craig asks with an apology. Lisa asks by telling you the deadline." I laughed once and fitted the new filter into place. "Caitlin's opening a bakery." I heard. "Mom wants me to prepare the loan package. Do you want to?" I said I'd help. That wasn't my question. I climbed down and folded the step stool. Grandma took the trash bag from me and tied it shut. "I want Caitlin to succeed," I said. That still wasn't my question. I followed her into the kitchen. On the counter, she had sliced tomatoes, bread, and a plate of cheese. She started making 2 sandwiches without asking whether I wanted one. "I don't mind helping with the application," I said. I just found out Mom told the lender I'd do ongoing reporting, too. Grandma stopped with the butter knife in her hand. Did you agree to that? No. What did Lisa say when you asked? That I was being literal. Grandma went back to spreading mustard. What did Caitlin say? That it's a family project. And Craig? He says Mom got ahead of herself. She placed a sandwich in front of me. Your father has been one step behind your mother for 40 years. That way he never has to arrive first at a bad decision. I didn't answer. Grandma sat across from me and opened a bag of potato chips down the middle with kitchen scissors. She did that because she said bags were designed by people who enjoyed watching older women struggle. Did Mom ask you for money for the bakery? I asked. No. Dad said some of Caitlin's owner contribution is family money. Grandma ate one chip and brushed salt from her fingers. Then you should ask which family. I did. And they changed the subject. She watched me for a moment. Are you asking whether I gave Caitlin money? Yes, I did not. That was one answer. It wasn't the full answer I wanted, but I felt something in my shoulders release. Grandma had helped both of us over the years. She'd paid for Caitlin's cosmetology supplies when she first trained for salon work. She'd helped me buy textbooks during community college. She was careful, but she wasn't stingy. I thought maybe that was why nobody would explain it. If I gave your sister $32,000, I would remember. I know. And I'd tell you. I know that too. She took another bite of her sandwich. I looked at the paper calendar on the wall. Every bill she paid was probably written there somewhere. Grandma trusted records more than recollection, including her own. Seeing that calendar pulled me back to the summer after high school. I was 18. I'd been accepted at a university in northern Arizona and planned to study business. Grandma had spent years telling me there was college money. I didn't know the exact amount. I only knew she'd been sending it to Mom and that Mom was supposed to keep it for my education. A month before tuition was due, Mom sat me down at the same dining table where I'd just worked on Caitlin's bakery package. Dad stood by the kitchen doorway. Mom put both hands around a coffee cup. We had a family financial crisis, she said. The college money isn't there anymore. I remember looking at Dad. What happened to it? We had obligations, Mom said. What obligations? Housing, bills, helping everyone stay stable. Is any of it left? Dad looked at the floor. Mom said, no. I asked why they hadn't told me before I applied. She cried. Not loudly. She pressed a napkin to her eyes and said she felt like a terrible mother. I ended up comforting her. 2 days later, I enrolled at community college. I worked mornings at an office supply store and took classes in the afternoon. Mom told relatives I'd chosen the practical route because I was mature. After a while, I repeated that version too. At Grandma's table, I folded a chip bag corner between my fingers. Did you ever wonder why I didn't go north for school? I asked. She frowned. You told me you wanted to stay in Mesa. Mom said the college money disappeared during a family crisis. Grandma didn't move. What college money? She asked. The money you'd been sending her for me. Her face changed, but before she could answer, her kitchen phone rang. She looked toward it, then back at me. I didn't know what she was thinking. I only knew she had stopped blinking. The phone rang again. Grandma stood slowly, but she didn't pick it up. Alexis, she said, who told you that money was gone? Mom. Grandma stayed beside the table. Lisa told you. She and Dad did. The phone stopped ringing. A few seconds later, the answering machine picked up in the living room. Dad's voice came through the speaker. Dawn, it's Craig. Just checking whether Alexis is still there. Have her call us when she leaves. Grandma looked toward the hallway. How did he know you were here? I told Mom I was coming. The machine clicked off. Grandma sat down again. Tell me exactly what Lisa said about the money. I repeated what I remembered. The family had obligations. There had been a crisis. Everyone needed to stay stable. Nothing was left. Grandma listened without interrupting. When I finished, she pushed her plate aside. I sent your mother the last check before you finished high school. You're sure? Yes. What happened after that? She told me everything was arranged. For the university? For your education? But when I enrolled at community college, you didn't ask why I wasn't using the fund? You told me you wanted to stay close to home. Your mother said you decided the university would cost too much. I looked at the table. That part sounded like me. I had said it to people. I'd said community college was sensible. I'd said I didn't want debt. I'd said there was no reason to move away for the same basic classes. All of that was true after I learned the fund was gone. Before that, I'd wanted to leave. Did she ever tell you there'd been a financial crisis? I asked. No. Did you stop sending money because of one? No. Then how much was supposed to be there? Grandma's eyes moved toward the hallway. I need to look at my records. That answer surprised me. Grandma knew the cost of everything she'd paid for since the 1980s. If she said she needed records, she wasn't guessing for my benefit. What records? Checks. You still have checks from then? I have the bank copies. All of them? I believe so. I stood without meaning to. Can we look? Not right now. Why? Because I need to make sure I know what I have before I say more. Grandma, Mom told me the money was gone. I heard you, and you're telling me it shouldn't have been. I'm telling you what I know. I completed what I promised to send. The kitchen phone rang again. This time, Grandma walked over and lifted the receiver. Hello, Craig. She listened. Yes, she's here. Another pause. No, she isn't upset. She looked directly at me. She asked me a question. Dad spoke long enough that Grandma pulled the phone slightly away from her ear. Then she said, That sounds like something Lisa should explain herself. She hung up. What did he say? He said there may be confusion about old family finances. Did he say what the confusion was? No. She picked up both plates and carried them to the sink. Where are the records? In my file box. Here? Yes. I glanced toward the hallway. Grandma turned on the faucet. I'm going to look at them alone first. Why alone? Because you came here to change an air filter, and 10 minutes later, you found out 2 people gave you different versions of your education money. I'd like to be careful. I wanted to argue. Instead, I picked up the glasses and carried them to the sink. When will you look? Tonight? Will you call me? Yes. Even if you don't find anything? Yes. That was a real answer. I accepted it. As I was leaving, she touched my arm. Don't call your mother about this yet. I wasn't planning to. Good. Why? Because Craig called twice in 5 minutes to ask whether you were still here. That was when I understood Dad hadn't been checking on me. He'd been checking on the conversation. I sat in my car outside Grandma's house and called him. He answered on the first ring. Hey, kiddo. Why did you call Grandma? Your mother wanted to know if you were staying for lunch. I was already eating lunch. Well, we didn't know that. You left 2 messages. I called twice. Yes. He breathed out slowly. What did you 2 talk about? The air filter. Alexis. You called to ask if I was there. I'm asking why. Your mother was concerned you might bring up the bakery money. Why would that concern her? Because Dawn doesn't need to be pulled into it. I asked whether she gave Caitlin money. She said no. Dad didn't respond. So the $32,000 isn't from Grandma, I said. I never said it was. You said it was family money. It is. Whose? Some of ours. Some of Caitlin's. Her application calls all of it savings. That's probably a wording issue. No, it isn't. She's putting money into the business. That's what matters. Money she already has, or money you're promising? We're working through the timing. I looked back at Grandma's front door. The curtain beside it moved, then went still. How much does Caitlin actually have? You need to ask her. I did. Then give her a chance to answer. Dad, you were at the table when she said $32,000 was in savings. I don't remember her exact words. I wrote them down. He went quiet again. I waited. Finally, he said, Your mother and I may help with part of the contribution. How much? We haven't settled that. Then Caitlin put money on a financial statement that she doesn't have. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. His voice became firmer. Do not call the lender and accuse your sister of lying. I didn't say I was going to. I know how you get when numbers don't line up. That sentence stayed with me. Not because it was cruel. Dad rarely said openly cruel things. He preferred concern. Concern allowed him to make my accuracy sound like a condition the family had learned to manage. How do I get? I asked. You lock onto one detail. This detail is $32,000. It's a draft. It was submitted. Nothing's final yet. Then why is everyone afraid I'll ask about it? I'm not afraid. Mom told me not to make the family look disorganized. Caitlin told me not to make it weird. You called Grandma twice to see what I was telling her. I'm trying to keep people calm. Who? He didn't answer. I said, I'm not preparing a package based on money that doesn't exist. No one is asking you to. That is literally what you're asking me to do. Talk to your sister. Then he ended the call. I sat there with my phone in my hand. A few months earlier, I would have called Mom next. I would have explained the problem until she agreed to use different wording. Then I would have helped them create a contribution letter and updated every sheet myself. I knew, because I'd done versions of that for years. Caitlin's spray tan business had once missed a tax filing because she thought closing the business meant she didn't have to submit the final form. Mom called me from the kitchen and said, please fix this before your father hears about it. I'd spent an entire Saturday sorting receipts. When I finished, Caitlin hugged me and said, I knew my little sister would save me. At dinner that night, Mom toasted Caitlin for having the courage to know when an idea had run its course. No one mentioned the tax filing. I didn't mention it either. I told myself I didn't need credit. What I needed was for them to see I belonged at the table, for reasons beyond being the person who could repair things. The problem was I kept repairing things before anyone had to see the damage. I drove home and opened the lender's email. The message confirmed they had updated their notes, but it didn't say what information had already been provided. I could have asked Caitlin again. Instead, I made a deliberate choice. I wrote directly to the loan officer. I said I was organizing documents at Caitlin's request and wanted to avoid duplicating work. I asked for the current application checklist, including any items already marked received. I also asked whether the owner contribution required proof before pre-approval. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I didn't mention the argument. I asked the same kind of questions I would ask a vendor at work. The response arrived Monday morning. The loan officer attached a checklist with dates beside the received items. The personal financial statement had been received the previous week. The business plan had been received 2 days before Mom called me the family's numbers person. My name appeared in the business plan. The paragraph said Caitlin would be supported by a family operations team. It described Mom as helping with customer service, Dad as overseeing repairs, and me as providing financial administration and contract review. I hadn't seen the business plan. I kept reading. The owner contribution had not been verified. Before final approval, Caitlin would need to provide a recent account statement or proof of transferred funds. A gift could count, but it had to be documented as a gift with no repayment required. That was useful. It meant the $32,000 couldn't remain a vague promise. Someone would have to show where it came from. I saved the checklist and business plan in the dated folder. Then I emailed Caitlin. The lender requires proof of the owner contribution. Please send the most recent statement for the account containing the $32,000. Also, remove my name from the business plan until we agree in writing on any role. She called while I was reviewing a bid tabulation. I let it ring. She called again. I sent a message saying I could speak at lunch. At 11:58, she was already calling. What are you doing? She asked. I'm requesting the document the lender requires. You went around me. I asked what had already been submitted. You made me look like I'm hiding things. Are you? No. Then send the statement. Mom and Dad haven't transferred their portion yet. How much is their portion? That's between us. Then how much is yours? I have money. How much? She said nothing. I waited. Finally, she said, a little over 6. 6,000? Yes. The personal financial statement listed $32,000 in cash and savings. Where is the rest coming from? Mom and Dad are helping. With $26,000? It might not be exactly that once all the deposits clear. What deposits? Customer deposits, catering. You can't count business deposits as your personal savings. I'm not asking you to lecture me. I'm asking you to correct the application. I'm asking you to help me get the bakery funded. Those should be the same task. She made a frustrated sound. This is why Mom didn't want you speaking directly to the lender. I turned my chair toward the window. Why is my name in your business plan? Because you're helping. It says, I'm providing financial administration. You do financial stuff. I'm a municipal procurement analyst. I don't run your accounts. You've done my books before, not as part of a loan application? Fine. I'll change the wording. Remove my name. That makes it look like I don't have support. You listed support you didn't have. I thought I had it. There was a hurt quality in her voice that almost worked on me. Almost. Caitlin, send a corrected financial statement. I'll talk to Mom. Mom isn't the applicant. She's contributing the money. Then she can provide a gift letter after the money exists. You really want to reduce our family to paperwork? The bank does. She hung up. An hour later, Mom sent a group text. We need to sit down together before anybody sends anything else. I didn't respond. That evening, Caitlin emailed a bank statement. The balance was $6,412. Her name was the only name on the account. She also attached a revised personal financial statement. Cash and savings now showed $6,400. The $25,600 difference had been moved to a line labeled Pending Family Gift. My request had worked. The number was no longer pretending to be hers. But the corrected form created a new question. Mom and Dad did not have $25,600 sitting around. I knew enough about their bills to know that. The same parents who needed me to remove an electric late fee were promising more than $25,000 to Caitlin's bakery. I printed the revised statement and set it beside the business plan. Then I opened a new page in my notebook and wrote 2 questions. What had Mom and Dad promised the lender? Where were they planning to get the money? Before I could close the notebook, a calendar invitation appeared on my screen. The pre-approval meeting had been moved to Wednesday morning. In the notes, Caitlin had written, all family operations members attending. I clicked decline. Then I changed my response to tentative. I wasn't going there as a member of Caitlin's team. I was going to hear what the lender believed. The meeting was in a small conference room with beige walls and a glass door that didn't quite block the sound from the lobby. I arrived 5 minutes early. Caitlin was already there with Mom and Dad. She had brought a box of mini lemon cakes with Copper Mesa Bakery stickers on top. Mom looked at my work clothes and laptop bag. You came straight from the office. I'm going there after this. I thought you took the morning off. I moved 1 meeting. Caitlin slid a cake toward me. Peace offering. For what? She smiled without answering. The loan officer came in carrying a tablet and a thin folder. His name was Evan Park. We shook hands, and he thanked Caitlin for the cakes. Before he sat down, I said, I need to clarify that I'm not part of the bakery's management team. Caitlin shifted in her chair. Evan looked at his notes. All right, I helped organize some documents. I'm not providing ongoing financial administration. Mom gave a quiet sigh. Evan removed his glasses and set them beside the tablet. I saw your email. We updated the business plan in our internal file. That was the practical result I wanted. My name was no longer supporting a role I hadn't accepted. Caitlin said, Alexis may still help me from time to time. As her sister, I said, not as an employee or manager. Evan nodded. Understood. Mom folded her hands on the table. We're all very supportive. We just want to be precise. She said precise like it was a habit we all shared. Evan turned the tablet toward Caitlin. We reviewed the revised personal financial statement and the current projections. I want to walk through what still needs to happen. He started with the owner contribution. Caitlin had $6,400 documented. The rest of the pending family gift wasn't available yet. Evan said the lender would need proof before closing, but the gift didn't need to be transferred that morning. Mom relaxed visibly. "We can get that together," she said. Dad looked at her. "We still need to discuss the amount. We have discussed it. Not the final amount." Caitlin leaned forward. "Can we not do this here?" Evan waited without reacting. Mom gave Dad a look, then said, "We'll provide the gift documentation. I wrote that down." Evan moved to the construction budget. He asked about the missing electrical work. Caitlin said the contractor had included it verbally. "Then we'll need a revised written quote," he said. I watched her face. The same request sounded different coming from him. When I'd made it, she'd told me not to be intense. When he made it, she nodded and took notes. He asked why projected revenue had dropped between versions. Caitlin glanced at me. "We made the first year more conservative." "That's generally better," he said. Mom looked down at her hands. I didn't need her to acknowledge that I'd been right. I'd told myself that for years. But sitting there, I realized I had wanted it anyway. I wanted someone in my family to say that my questions weren't negativity. They were the reason the application had become usable. Evan continued through the checklist. The lease was acceptable. The location fit the bakery's expected sales area. Caitlin's catering history showed there was demand, although the lender wanted updated deposit records and tax returns. Then he reached the credit section. He looked at Caitlin. "Based on the current application, we can approve the full request with you as the only guarantor." Caitlin's pen stopped. "What does that mean?" "It means the business doesn't have enough operating history, and your personal credit doesn't support the requested amount. How far off is it? We don't score it in quite that way." "But is it close?" Evan paused. "The requested loan is $180,000. With the current file, it wouldn't move forward on your guarantee alone." I looked at Caitlin. She wasn't surprised enough. Mom wasn't surprised at all. Dad was studying the table. I set down my pen. "What option did you discuss before this meeting?" I asked. Evan looked from me to Mom. We discussed adding a stronger guarantor. Nobody spoke. Then he looked directly at me. "My understanding was that you were willing to consider that role." I felt the room become very still. "No," I said. "That was never discussed with me." Evan's expression changed immediately. "Then I apologize. I was given the wrong impression." "By whom?" Mom answered before he could. "I said it was something we could discuss." "You told him I was willing to consider it?" "I said you were helping your sister." "That isn't the same thing. No one said it was final." Caitlin put down her pen. "We knew the bank might want more support." "We?" "Mom and I." "How long have you known?" "Since the first call." "That call happened before Caitlin sent me the spreadsheet." I looked at Dad. "Did you know?" He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table. I knew it was a possibility. All three of them had known. They'd watched me spend evenings correcting the application. They'd let me ask about savings, gift money, and missing quotes. The whole time, they knew the lender might expect my credit behind the loan. "What exactly would I be signing?" I asked Evan. Mom leaned toward me. "We don't need to get into every detail right now." "Yes, we do." Evan stayed calm. A personal guarantee means that if the business doesn't repay the loan, the lender can pursue the guarantor for the unpaid balance, subject to the loan terms, so I'd be personally responsible. If the loan defaulted, yes, for $180,000. The balance could be less by then, but the guarantee would support the loan obligation. Mom touched my forearm. "It's standard." I moved my arm away. "Standard for the person signing it." "Of course. You weren't going to mention this before the meeting?" "I'm mentioning it now. The loan officer mentioned it." Caitlin looked toward the glass door, probably checking whether anyone in the lobby could hear. We were trying to get the package far enough along to know what the bank actually needed. "You knew what they might need." "Might," Mom said. "That's the important word." I turned back to Evan. "If I don't guarantee it, what happens?" We could look at a smaller request, additional collateral, or a different structure, but based on the numbers submitted, the current request wouldn't qualify. Would the bakery have enough money to open with a smaller loan? Evan didn't answer for Caitlin. She said, no. The word came out flat. Dad finally looked at me. Nobody expects you to decide today. When did you expect me to decide? Mom said. Once you understood the business, I've spent weeks trying to understand it. You kept out the part involving me. We didn't keep it out. What would you call this? A family conversation that hadn't happened yet. Evan closed the folder in front of him. I can give you some privacy. No, Caitlin said quickly. Please stay. We're fine. We weren't, but she wanted the meeting to continue. Evan explained the remaining process. If Caitlin submitted the corrected construction quote, the updated tax returns, proof of her contribution, and a qualified guarantor application, he could request conditional approval. That wasn't funding. It meant the lender was prepared to proceed if every listed condition was met. He did not ask for my personal information. I appreciated that. He said, if you choose to consider guaranteeing the loan, I'd recommend reviewing the documents independently. You shouldn't sign based only on what's discussed in this room. Mom's mouth tightened. I'm sure Alexis understands paperwork. I understand enough to know I wasn't told the truth about why I was here. Caitlin whispered, can you stop saying that? No. It was the first time I refused her without softening it. The words sat between us. Evan gathered his tablet and stood. Caitlin asked him whether the application deadline could be extended. He checked the lease dates. The reduced rent period ends soon. That's a business deadline, not ours. For the current review, I can hold the file open for 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Mom asked. That should be enough if the remaining items come in promptly. Caitlin looked at me. I pretended not to notice. Evan thanked us and left the room. As soon as the glass door closed, Mom said, before you react, remember that nobody asked you to sign today. You told him I was willing. I told him you were part of the family support. Why didn't you ask me first? Because I knew you'd get frightened by the amount before you saw how good the plan was. I stared at her. You thought hiding the amount of risk would make me more reasonable? I didn't hide it. Caitlin pushed the cake box away. Can we please focus? We have 3 weeks. We don't have 3 weeks, Dad said. The contractor wants the next payment by Friday. Caitlin turned to him. You said you could cover that. I said we'd look at it. Mom spoke over both of them. Alexis, all we need is for you to consider it. Caitlin has customers. She has orders. This isn't one of her old businesses. Her application overstated her savings, and she corrected it after I asked for proof. That's what preparation is for. She listed me in the business plan without permission. We removed you. After I contacted the lender. Mom's voice rose slightly. So you got everything you wanted. Why are you still angry? Because none of it would have happened if I hadn't checked. I didn't say that. I opened my laptop and removed the bakery folder from my favorites. I'm pausing the bookkeeping. Caitlin blinked. What? I'm not doing more unpaid work until I understand exactly what you're asking from me. We just explained it. No, Evan explained it. Mom sat back. You're punishing her. I'm protecting myself. From your sister. From a debt she can't qualify for. Caitlin's face went red. That was unnecessary. It's what the lender just said. You always know how to make me sound like a failure. I didn't bring up your credit, the bank did. Dad said my name quietly, warning me. I closed the laptop. I'll review the guarantee terms if they send them. That does not mean I'll apply, and it does not mean I'll sign. Mom's shoulders lowered. Fine. That's fair. It wasn't fair. It was the smallest delay she could accept while still believing I would eventually agree. Caitlin started packing the cakes. We're having a preview brunch at the storefront, she said, the Saturday before the file deadline. For customers, family, vendors, some people from the shopping center. Evan said he could bring the final papers there if everything is approved. I looked at her. You scheduled a signing event before you have approval? It's a preview brunch. The signing is one part. Mom smiled like this solves something. It'll be nice. Everyone can see what they're supporting. I understood then why they wanted the papers signed at the bakery. They didn't want me alone at a desk with time to think. They wanted me surrounded by relatives, pastries, contractors, and a copper sign already mounted on the wall. Dad followed me into the parking lot. "Your mother shouldn't have used your name," he said. I unlocked my car. "But?" "There's no but." I waited. He put his hands in his pockets. But this could be Caitlin's last real chance. There it was. What does that have to do with my credit? She needs someone stable. She's had someone stable for 13 years. Dad looked away. The number had come out before I thought about it. 13 years since I worked mornings and took community college classes because my education money had disappeared. He rubbed his jaw. "Don't mix old disappointments into this." "What old disappointments?" "You know what I mean." "No, say it." He looked back toward the building. "Your mother handled the money. I stayed out of it." "What money?" He didn't answer. I stepped closer. "Dad, what money did Mom handle?" He pulled out his keys. The past should not endanger the bakery. Then he walked to his truck, leaving me beside my car with a loan deadline, a guarantee I had never offered, and the first clear sign that the missing college fund and Caitlin's new business belonged in the same conversation. I called Dad before he reached the exit. He didn't answer. A minute later, Mom called me. "What did you say to your father?" I was still standing beside my car. I asked him what money you handled. He's upset. He's driving. You know what I mean. I opened the car door but didn't get in. "Did you use my college money for something else?" Mom went quiet. Traffic moved behind me. Somewhere across the parking lot, a truck was backing up with a steady electronic beep. "Where is this coming from?" she asked. "Dad said you handled the money." "What money?" "That's what I'm asking. Alexis, your father is under a lot of pressure. He doesn't always explain himself well. Then you explain it. We're standing in the middle of Caitlin's loan process, and suddenly you're dragging up something from 13 years ago." I didn't bring it up. Dad did. "No, you did. You started asking Dawn questions. So Dad had called her after leaving the parking lot. I told Grandma what you told me when I was 18. She's almost 80. She doesn't need financial stress. She asked one question. You asked whether she gave Caitlin money." "Yes." "Why would you do that?" "Because none of you would tell me where Caitlin's contribution was coming from." Mom lowered her voice. "Your grandmother's money is her business. She said she didn't give Caitlin anything." "Then you have your answer." "Not about my college fund." Mom was silent again. I waited. Finally, she said, "We had a difficult year. What happened to the money?" "There were bills." "What bills?" "Household expenses, family expenses, things you didn't understand at 18. I'm 31 now, and you're still looking at it like money had your name printed on every dollar. Grandma sent it for my education. She sent money to the family. That's not how she remembers it." Mom's voice changed. "What exactly did she tell you?" "She said she completed what she promised." "Did she show you anything?" I looked through the windshield of my car. "No, that was true." Mom exhaled. "Then maybe wait until you have facts before you start accusing people." I asked a question. "You're implying your father and I stole from you." I didn't use that word. "You didn't have to." She sounded hurt now. It was the same shift she used whenever a conversation reached the point where she might have to give a direct answer. "I need the old household statements," I said. "What statements?" "From the year I graduated." "Why?" "To see what happened. We don't keep bank statements for 13 years. Grandma does. This is exactly what I was afraid of." "What were you afraid of?" "That you'd turn helping your sister into a trial about your childhood." I leaned against the car. "I'm being asked to guarantee $180,000 for her. I'm allowed to understand what happened to money that was meant for me. You made it through college, community college. You have a good career. That doesn't answer the question. Nothing will answer it for you, Alexis. You've always carried this quiet resentment toward Caitlin." I almost interrupted her. Then I stopped. Mom had never called it resentment when I fixed Caitlin's books. It only became resentment when I asked why I'd been expected to do it. "We heard you the first time." That includes calling the contractor, organizing taxes, and chasing documents. Nobody asked you to call the contractor. Not yet. She didn't respond. I got into my car. If you find the old statements, let me know. I'm not searching through boxes so you can build a case against your sister. Then I'll ask Dad. You leave your father out of this. She ended the call. I sat there for another minute, then drove to work. At 3 that afternoon, Caitlin emailed me the contractor's invoice. The message said, "Can you call and explain the bank timing? He listens better when people sound official." I read it once and replied, "No, you hired him. You need to call." She sent back a question mark. I didn't answer. At 4:30, Mom texted, "Caitlin is crying in the storefront because the contractor may stop work." I placed my phone face down. Then I turned it back over and typed, "She has the lender's written timeline. She can forward it herself." Mom replied, "This is not how family behaves." I didn't respond. For the rest of the afternoon, I had trouble concentrating. I checked the same bid total 3 times. I opened Caitlin's invoice twice, even though I had no intention of handling it. At 5:15, I nearly called the contractor. That was the part I had to see in myself. Mom knew exactly which message would work because it had worked before. She didn't need to order me. She only had to describe Caitlin in distress and wait for me to remove it. I deleted the contractor's number from my recent calls. Then I went home. Grandma called while I was heating soup. "I found the box," she said. I turned off the burner. "And I have records from that period." "What do they show?" "They show what I sent." "How much?" "I'm still adding it." I heard paper moving near the phone. "Grandma, you know how to add checks. I also know how to verify my work. Did Mom get the money?" "I'm not answering that until I've checked every page." That sounded like Grandma, but I could hear something else in her voice. Not confusion. Anger held very tightly. "Did you talk to Mom?" "No. She knows I asked you. I assumed she would. She said you sent money to the family, not specifically for me." Grandma stopped moving the papers. "That is not true." The words were quiet. "What did you write on the checks?" "Alexis Education." "Every time?" "Some say college. Some say education fund. I need to look at all of them." My soup began making small, popping sounds in the pan. "Can I come over?" "Not tonight." "Why not?" "I'm waiting for the bank to call me back about 2 older images that are hard to read." She was double-checking. That mattered because if Grandma said the records showed something, Mom couldn't dismiss it as an old woman remembering badly. "Please don't tell Mom what you have yet," I said. "I wasn't planning to." "What are you planning?" "Finding out whether your mother intends to tell the truth without seeing my paper first." I sat at the counter. "How?" "I'm going to ask her." "When?" "After I finish. I wanted the file immediately. I wanted to drive over, put every check in order, and make the numbers settle the question." But Grandma had spent years keeping those records. They were hers to handle. "Call me before you talk to her." "I will. Promise." "I promise." After we hung up, I ate the soup without tasting it. The next evening, I went to my parents' house. Mom had said she didn't keep old bank statements. Dad had once shown me a plastic storage bin in the hall closet where he kept tax returns, insurance papers, and old home repair receipts. I texted him first and said I wanted to look for records from the year I graduated. He replied, "Your mother won't like it." I wrote, "I'm not asking her." He sent back, "Come before 6. Dad met me at the front door. He looked tired. "Your mother's getting groceries. Where's the bin?" He didn't move. I shouldn't have said anything in the parking lot. Was it true? I said, "Your mother handled the money. You also said the past shouldn't endanger the bakery." He glanced toward the kitchen. I was frustrated. Did Mom use family money to help Caitlin? He rubbed his palm over the back of his neck. Caitlin had trouble getting the salon financing. I knew that part. Her first salon opened the same year I began community college. Mom had told everyone Caitlin found a private solution after the original financing fell apart. How did she open it? Your mother helped. With what money? I don't know every detail. You lived here. Lisa handled the accounts. You signed the tax returns. That doesn't mean I reviewed every transaction. I stepped closer. Did she move money to Caitlin? Dad looked at me, then away. Yes. My mouth went dry. What money? I told you I don't know the exact account. Was it my education money? I don't know. Did you ask? It was 13 years ago. That isn't an answer. He walked toward the hall closet. I followed him. Dad opened the door and pulled out a gray plastic bin. It was heavier than he expected. The bottom scraped against the floor. He set it beside the dining table. Your mother kept some monthly statements, but we changed banks around then. I removed the lid. The folders were labeled by year: home insurance, taxes, medical, utilities. There was one folder marked bank, but it held only 4 statements from the year before I graduated. The next year's folder had none. Where are the rest? I don't know. Did Mom throw them away? She may have switched to electronic statements. Do you still have the login? No. The account was closed years ago. I searched the bin twice. There were salon receipts in Caitlin's old tax folder, chair rentals, signage, towels, product inventory. I didn't remove anything. I only looked at the dates. The first large purchases began less than 2 months after my high school graduation. That wasn't proof of where the money came from. It was enough to make the timing clear. Dad watched me close the folder. Caitlin knew Mom was helping her? I asked. Yes. Did she know where the money came from? I don't know what Lisa told her. Did you know? He sat in one of the dining chairs. I knew your mother moved money around. I didn't ask for a breakdown. Why not? Because the salon was already in motion. Caitlin had signed things. Backing out would have wasted everything. It was almost the same argument he'd made about the bakery. What did Mom tell you about my college fund? That you'd decided to stay here. She told me it was gone. His eyes lifted to mine. I didn't know she said that. You were standing in the kitchen. I don't remember the conversation the way you do. You didn't say anything. Dad looked toward the front window. A car door closed outside. Mom had come home. He stood quickly. You need to go. I'm not finished. She'll think I let you search through her things. You did. That's not what I mean. The front door opened. Mom stepped inside carrying 2 grocery bags. She saw the gray bin on the floor, then looked at Dad. What is she doing here? I held up the folder from the year I graduated. I'm looking for the statements you said didn't exist. Mom set the bags on the entry table. Her face didn't change, but her hands stayed on the handles. Craig, she said, why would you let her do this? Dad said nothing. I put the folder back in the bin. Dad confirmed you moved family money to Caitlin when her salon financing failed. Mom looked at him. That was the exposure. Dad had given me one useful fact, and now she knew he had broken the family's silence. She walked into the dining room and closed the lid on the bin. Go home, Alexis. What money did you move? You came into my house to search my records. Dad invited me. You're trying to damage your sister's bakery because you regret your own choices. My choice was based on what you told me. You chose community college. After you said the fund was gone. Mom placed both palms on the plastic lid. If Dawn wants to discuss what she contributed, she can discuss it with me. She is. For the first time, Mom looked uncertain. It lasted less than a second. Then she said, you need to decide whether you're part of this family or an investigator standing outside it. I picked up my bag. Until then, I'd gone looking for old statements because I wanted an explanation. I left with a different objective. I wanted to know what Mom was so determined to keep me from proving. Mom didn't call me the next day. That was unusual. She normally called at least once, even if it was only to ask whether a charge on her credit card looked familiar. By noon, I'd checked my phone enough times to annoy myself. At 1:30, Caitlin sent a message. Mom says you're not coming Sunday unless you apologize. I read it while standing beside the office copier. Apologize for what? Going through their private records. Dad gave me the bin. You cornered him. I asked him questions. He feels terrible. He should. Caitlin started typing, stopped, then started again. Her next message said, this is what I mean. You don't care who you hurt when you decide you're right. I put my phone away. 10 minutes later, it rang. Caitlin didn't wait for me to speak. I'm trying to keep this from turning into a permanent family split. I'm at work. You answered. What do you need? I need you to call Mom. No, she's been crying all morning. Did she answer the question? What question? Where my college money went. Caitlin sighed. I was 21. I don't know what was happening with your college plans. You were opening the salon. What does that have to do with anything? I don't know yet. Her voice hardened. You're really doing this. Doing what? Trying to connect everything I've ever done to something you're unhappy about. Dad said Mom moved family money to you after your financing failed. I didn't handle the financing. You owned the salon. Mom helped me open it. She was my mother. What did she give you? I don't remember. That answer didn't fit Caitlin. She remembered every person who had ever failed to support one of her ventures. She remembered the exact amount a former salon partner had withdrawn from their shared account. She remembered a supplier charging her twice for hair products 11 years earlier. You don't remember how you paid to open your first business? I had startup costs from different places. Which places? Why would I have a list in my head? Because you were 21, your loan fell through, and then you opened anyway. It wasn't a loan. It was a financing arrangement. What's the difference? It doesn't matter. Did Mom tell you where her money came from? No. The answer came too quickly. I lowered my voice. Did you ask? Alexis, I'm dealing with a contractor, a landlord, and a bank. I don't have time to help you rewrite our entire family history. I'm not asking for help. Good. Then leave my name out of it. You're the person Dad says received the money, family money, not your money. I went still. A coworker passed the copier and gave me a small wave. I turned toward the wall. I didn't call it mine, I said. Dad called it family money. Caitlin didn't respond. Who told you it wasn't mine? Nobody. You just said it. Because that's what you're implying. Did Mom call you after I left? Of course she called me. You upset both of them. What did she tell you? She said you've convinced yourself they took something from you. What did you say? I said you've always felt like things were easier for me. That isn't what I asked. I'm not having this conversation. She hung up. I stood beside the copier until its screen went dark. Then I opened my email. Caitlin had copied me on a message to the contractor. She'd asked him to continue through Friday while financing was finalized. He'd agreed to finish the counter installation, but no additional work would begin without payment. Her direct conversation had produced the same result mine would have. She'd handled it herself. That should have made me feel relieved. Instead, I saw how unnecessary I'd made myself over the years. Not unnecessary to the family, exactly. Unnecessary to tasks they were capable of doing when I refused. I had confused being needed with being valued. The difference was becoming expensive. At 4, my supervisor stopped beside my desk and asked whether I had finished the vendor comparison due that afternoon. I hadn't. I'd spent almost an hour dealing with personal calls and rereading old messages. I told her I'd have it before 5. She looked at the clock. You're usually ahead on these. I know. I'm sorry. She didn't scold me. That made it worse. I stayed until 6:30 and completed the comparison alone. The parking garage was nearly empty when I left. That was my professional cost. Nothing dramatic happened. I didn't lose my job. I simply let my family's confusion enter the one part of my life where I was trusted because I didn't bring confusion with me. I decided it wouldn't happen again. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb during work hours. Mom, Dad, and Caitlin could still reach me twice in an emergency, but ordinary calls would remain silent. When I got home, there was a voicemail from Mom. You've made it clear you don't trust us. Until you're ready to apologize to your father, I think it's best if you give us some space. Don't come Sunday. We'll discuss the bakery when you can be objective. I listened once, then I deleted it. Sunday dinner had happened almost every week since I finished college. I brought a side dish. I helped Dad with online bills. I checked Mom's phone when an app stopped working. If Caitlin arrived late, Everyone waited. If I worked late, Mom saved me a plate in the refrigerator. I'd told myself the saved plate meant I had a place there. Now I understood the place could be withdrawn the moment I stopped doing what they expected. I cried that night. Not for long. I sat on the bathroom floor with my back against the tub and pressed a towel to my face because I didn't want to hear myself. Then I washed the towel, wiped down the sink, and went to bed. The next morning, Grandma called before I left for work. "Can you come by tonight?" "Yes." I spoke to Lisa. I gripped the phone. "What did she say?" "I'd rather tell you here. Did you tell her about the records?" I asked her a question. I didn't tell her what I had. "What question?" I asked whether she received the full amount I sent for your education. And she said no. I sat down on the edge of my bed. What did she say happened? She said I stopped contributing when family expenses increased. That isn't what she told me. I know. I looked at the clock. I had 20 minutes before I needed to leave. "Did you stop?" "No." "How much did you send?" "Come after work." "Grandma, drive safely and come after work." She hung up. I arrived at her house a little after 5:30. The hall table had been cleared. A black metal file box sat on top of it. It was about the size of a small suitcase with a silver lock on the front. Grandma was waiting in the kitchen. She didn't offer me tea. That scared me more than if she'd been crying. "Sit down," she said. I sat. She placed a yellow legal pad between us. Dates and amounts were written in her neat blue handwriting. "I began sending checks in 2007, she said. "The last one cleared in 2012, the year before I graduated." "Yes." "How many?" I counted everything twice. She turned the legal pad so I could read it. At the bottom, she had written $48,000. I stared at the number. I'd spent years trying not to imagine what the fund might have changed. I didn't want to turn my life into a list of things I could have had: a university dorm, fewer work shifts, a bachelor's degree completed sooner, a first job that didn't require explaining why I'd taken the long route. But $48,000 was not a missed textbook payment. It wasn't a small emergency withdrawal. It was a complete education fund. "Were the checks deposited?" I asked. Everyone cleared. "Into Mom's account?" The images show Lisa endorsed them. Most went into the same household account. Most, 2 were deposited after the bank changed. "I'm waiting for confirmation on the destination account. Did any check come back?" "No." "Did you ever stop sending them?" "No." "Did you ever tell Mom she could use the money for household bills?" "No." Grandma's voice stayed steady. "What did she say when you asked?" "She said I was remembering it wrong. She said there were gaps. She said the total was nowhere near what you believed." "Did you tell her the total?" "No." "Why not?" "I wanted to know whether she would lie when she thought I couldn't prove it." I looked toward the hall. "Can I see the checks?" "Not tonight." The answer frustrated me enough that I stood. "Why does everyone keep telling me to wait?" Grandma didn't raise her voice. "Because those are original bank copies from an account that no longer exists, and I'm not taking them out until I have protective sleeves and a complete index. I'm not going to damage them. I know." "Then what are we waiting for?" "For me to finish this properly." I sat again. Grandma reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "Alexis, I can prove I sent the money. I cannot prove what Lisa did with it after she deposited it. That was the limit. The records could prove Mom had lied about receiving the full fund. They could not show the next transaction. They did not prove the money went to Caitlin. The salon timing pointed in that direction. Dad's admission pointed in that direction. Caitlin's reaction did too. But direction wasn't proof. I withdrew my hand and looked at the legal pad again. "Mom told me not to come Sunday." Grandma's face tightened. For asking? For searching their records? For upsetting Dad? For not being objective about the bakery? "Will you apologize?" "No." It was the first answer that came easily. If you've ever had to draw a line people expected you to avoid, leave the word boundary in the comments. Grandma slid the legal pad back toward herself. "What do you want now?" she asked. A week earlier, I would have said I wanted the truth about the college fund. I still wanted that. But it was no longer enough. Even if Mom admitted she'd spend it on household bills, the bakery problem would remain. Caitlin still expected my work. My parents still expected my credit. They still believed my stability was a family resource they could assign without asking. I don't want them to do it again, I said. Do what? Decide I can absorb the risk because I usually do. Grandma nodded once. That's different from proving what happened. I know. I looked toward the locked box. The original goal had been an explanation. Now I needed a boundary that would still hold if nobody explained anything. Grandma got up and poured 2 glasses of water. Are you going to refuse the guarantee? I haven't decided. She set 1 glass in front of me. That sounds like you have. No, it sounds like I know why they asked me. Because Caitlin can't qualify. Because they think I'll sign anyway. Grandma sat down again. What would make you sign? I thought about it. A clean application. Real savings. A business plan that didn't use my name without permission. A family that asked instead of arranged. An honest answer about the money. Even then, I didn't know. The lender is sending the terms, I said. I want to read them. Why? Because if I refuse, I want to understand exactly what I'm refusing. Grandma's mouth softened slightly. That sounds like you too. My phone lit up on the table. It was a message from Caitlin. The revised electrical quote had come in. The construction budget was now higher, and the family contribution still wasn't complete. A second message appeared. Evan says, conditional approval is possible if you submit the guarantor application by Friday. Please don't make me beg. Grandma read my face. What is it? They need my application by Friday. Are you going to send it? I locked the phone. I'm going to make them tell me the whole request first. That evening, I emailed Evan and asked for a written list of every condition tied to the proposed guarantee. I also told him not to share my financial information with Caitlin or my parents if I chose to apply. He replied the next morning. He could provide the conditions. He would keep my information separate. Submitting an application would allow the lender to evaluate me, but it would not obligate me to sign the final guarantee. For the first time, the process gave me a choice my family could not make for me. I completed the application. Then I saved it without sending it. The file stayed on my laptop until Thursday afternoon. I opened it twice and checked the same information: income, housing payment, current debts, employment history. The application was straightforward. The risk wasn't hidden in small print. The risk was the reason the form existed. At 3, Evan emailed the written conditions. Caitlin needed the corrected contractor quote, updated tax records, proof of the family gift, and a qualified guarantor. If I qualified, the lender would issue conditional approval. No money would be released unless every condition was satisfied, and I signed the personal guarantee at closing. I printed the email. Then I sent the application. I didn't tell my family. I told Evan I wanted all communication about my application sent directly to me. I also repeated that applying did not give anyone permission to describe me as committed to the bakery. He replied, "Understood." That one word gave me more control than 3 weeks of family conversations. On Friday morning, Mom called twice during work hours. My phone remained silent on the desk. At lunch, I listened to her voicemail. Evan told Caitlin the guarantor review is moving forward. I assume that means you sent the application. I don't understand why you'd hide that from us. Call me. I didn't call. I emailed Evan first. Did you tell Caitlin I applied? He responded within 10 minutes. He had told her only that the file was under guarantor review because the status affected her application. He hadn't shared my financial information. That was fair. I sent Mom a text. I applied so the lender can tell me the exact terms. I have not agreed to sign. She called immediately. I let it ring, then answered because I was still on lunch. You should have told us, she said. Why? Because this affects all of us. My credit application affects me. It affects the bakery. The bakery is Caitlin's. You know what I mean? I do. That's why I kept it separate. Mom was quiet for a moment. Then her voice softened. I'm glad you applied. I haven't agreed to guarantee anything. I heard you. Then don't tell people I have. Nobody's telling people. I need that to be clear. Alexis, I said I heard you. She ended the call. I wrote down the time and what she'd said. That wasn't something I usually did with family conversations. At work, I documented decisions because memory became flexible when money or deadlines were involved. At home, I'd relied on everyone meaning well. I stopped making that distinction. That evening, I emailed all 3 of them. I said I would not manage the bakery's bills, contractor payments, vendor records, or customer deposits. I would not contribute money. I would review the final guarantee documents only for my own decision. Until then, nobody had permission to tell vendors, relatives, or the lender that I had committed. I kept it short. Dad replied first. Understood. Caitlin replied with, wow. Mom didn't answer. On Saturday morning, I went grocery shopping. I was standing near the freezer section when Caitlin called. I almost ignored it, but she left a voicemail and called again. I answered. What happened? The frosting supplier won't release Monday's order. Why? They say the last invoice wasn't paid. Was it? I sent it. When? Wednesday. From which account? The bakery account. Then send them the confirmation. I can't find it. I close the freezer door. Call the bank. They're only open until noon. I looked at the time. It was 10:40. Then call now. Can you log into the bookkeeping file and check whether it cleared? No. Alexis, I have an order for a corporate lunch next week. You said you sent the payment. I did. Then the bank can confirm it. You still have the login. I removed my access. She stopped speaking. When? After I paused the bookkeeping. Why would you do that? Because I'm not managing your accounts. You could have told me. I emailed you. You said you weren't doing new work. You didn't say you were deleting things. I removed my own access. I didn't delete anything. She made a sharp sound. This is exactly the kind of technical distinction you use to make yourself feel innocent. I'm not stopping you from calling the bank. I'm in the storefront waiting for a plumbing inspection. Then call from there. I need the invoice number. Search your email. Could you please just help me? I held the cart handle and looked at a row of frozen vegetables. No, she didn't hang up this time. For several seconds, all I heard was her breathing. Then she said, fine. The call ended. I expected Mom to contact me next. She didn't. About an hour later, Caitlin sent a screenshot. She'd found the payment confirmation in her email. The supplier had applied it to the wrong customer account and released the order after she called. Her message said, handled. I replied, good, that was all. The bakery didn't collapse. The order didn't disappear. Caitlin spent less than an hour solving a problem she would normally have handed to me. My strategy worked once, in a way nobody could pretend not to see. That afternoon, Dad sent me a picture of the utility account. He and Mom had reset the password and updated their contact information. Got it working, he wrote. I stared at the message longer than it deserved. Good, I replied. They could handle their own account too. For one day, my family functioned without me as the backup. Nobody enjoyed it, but nothing broke. That evening, Grandma came to my apartment. She carried a reusable grocery bag and the black file box. She kept one hand under the bottom while I unlocked the door. You brought it. I needed a larger table. My dining table was really a square kitchen table with 2 chairs. We cleared off the mail and placed the box in the center. Grandma unlocked it with a key from her purse. Inside were hanging folders arranged by year. Each one contained bank copies, monthly statements, and notes in her handwriting. I reached for the first folder. Grandma put her hand on it. Clean hands. I just washed them again. I did. She had bought clear protective sleeves and small removable labels. We spent almost 3 hours matching each check image to the line on her legal pad. She did not let me remove anything from the table. The checks began in 2007. Most were made out to Lisa. The memo lines varied. Alexis education, college savings, for Alexis school. A few simply said education fund. Each image showed the front and back. Mom's signature appeared on the endorsement line. I felt something every time I saw her handwriting. Not surprise anymore, something flatter. Grandma read each check number aloud. I matched it to the list and placed the copy into a sleeve. The last one had cleared in late 2012. When we finished, the total was still $48,000. No gaps, no missing contribution, no family crisis that caused Grandma to stop sending money. "What did Mom say when you spoke?" I asked. Grandma closed the last folder. She said I helped when I could, but the amount had been smaller than I remembered. "Did you ask where it went?" She said household expenses used some of it. "Some?" That was her word. What about the rest? She said there was no separate fund by the time you graduated. I looked at the file box. "Did you tell her you have these?" "No." "Why not?" "Because she asked whether you'd put me up to the call." I looked up. "What did you say?" I said you told me what she told you. And then, "She said you were trying to destroy Caitlin's chance over an old misunderstanding." Grandma's mouth tightened. "I asked why your sister's bakery had anything to do with money sent for your education. What did she say?" She changed the subject. I leaned back in my chair. Dad admitted Mom moved family money to Caitlin when the salon financing failed. Did he say it was this money? No. Then we don't say that. I know. Grandma tapped the folder with one finger. "This proves what I sent and that Lisa received it." "It does not prove the next step. With the old household statements? Possibly, if they exist. Mom says they don't. Lisa also said I didn't send the full amount. That was true." Grandma locked the box again. "What will you do with these?" I asked. "Keep them." "I mean about Mom. I haven't decided. The bakery signing is next Saturday. Are you signing?" "I'm waiting for the review." "That isn't what I asked." "I know." Grandma lifted the box from the table. I took the other side. "Leave it here," I said. "No." "Why?" "Because Lisa has a key to your apartment." I stopped. Mom had an emergency key. She'd never used it without asking, but neither of us knew what she would do if she believed the file was here. "I can change the lock." "You rent. I can ask the manager." Grandma shook her head. "The file stays in my locked box at my house." We carried it to her car. Before she left, she said, "Your mother knows I questioned her. She may not know what I kept, but she knows enough to be worried. That exposure mattered. The records were still private, but our investigation wasn't." On Monday morning, Evan called. My application qualified. He explained that the lender could issue conditional approval for the $180,000 loan with me as the required personal guarantor. The approval would expire if the listed conditions weren't completed by the deadline. The final guarantee would be in the closing folder. "If I don't sign," I asked, "can Caitlin receive any of the loan proceeds?" "No." "Can someone replace me at the signing?" "Only if another guarantor applies and qualifies before closing. At this stage, that would likely require a new review." "Does she have another proposed guarantor?" "Not in the file." I thanked him and asked him to send the approval conditions to me in writing. An hour later, Caitlin posted in the family group chat for the first time since Mom told me not to come Sunday. "We got conditional approval." Mom followed with 6 celebration emojis. Dad wrote, "Great news." Then Caitlin added, "Preview brunch and signing next Saturday at Copper Mesa. Finally making this real." I read the message carefully. She had turned my qualification into her approval. She had turned a condition into a celebration. She had announced the signing before asking whether I would attend. Mom tagged me. "Our whole family will be there." My written boundary had worked. The lender recognized that my decision was separate. Caitlin had handled her supplier. My parents had fixed their own account. But now they all understood something clearly. The bakery had one condition they couldn't complete without me, and my signature had become the only target left. I didn't answer the group message. By lunch, Caitlin had created an online invitation. The photograph showed the copper sign, trays of pastries, and a ribbon stretched across the front counter. Under the date, she had written, "Celebrate our financing and the future of Copper Mesa Bakery." I sent her a private message. "The financing is conditional. I have not agreed to sign. She replied, Can you let me have one happy day? Change the invitation. No, you're telling people the loan is complete. I'm telling people we're celebrating. You included a signing time because Evan is bringing the papers. I called her. Take my name off the invitation. Your name isn't on it. The signing depends on me. Only you and the bank know that. Mom and Dad know. They're not going to announce it. Then what happens if I don't sign? Silence. That was the first time she allowed the possibility into the conversation. Finally, she said, You applied. I told you what that meant. You let the lender review your credit. You let us complete the conditions. You knew we were moving forward. I also told you in writing that I hadn't committed. You're hiding behind wording. No, I'm making my decision. Based on what? The loan documents, your finances, and whether anyone answers me honestly. She made a small, angry laugh. There it is. What? The punishment. I'm not punishing you. You're using my bakery to force Mom to discuss something from when we were barely adults. Mom connected the two before I did. No, she didn't. Dad did. Caitlin went quiet again. Then she said, Dad doesn't know what he's talking about. He knew Mom helped open your salon after your financing failed. I've already told you I didn't handle that. Did you know Mom was using family money? Mom gave me money. That is all I knew. How much? I don't remember. Did you repay it? She never asked me to. Did you ask where it came from? No, Alexis, I didn't audit my own mother. She said it like the idea was ridiculous. I looked out my office window. When someone gives you enough money to open a business, you don't ask one question? Not everyone treats help like evidence. Change the invitation. I'm not changing it. She hung up. An hour later, Mom added relatives and several vendors to a larger group chat. She posted the invitation and wrote, We're so proud of Caitlin and grateful to everyone who helped make this possible. Then she wrote, Special thanks to Alexis for using her financial expertise to guide the process. I read the message once. The wording was deliberate. If I objected, I would embarrass Caitlin in front of everyone. If I stayed silent, Mom could treat my silence as agreement. I wrote, I assisted with document organization. The loan remains conditional, and I have not made a decision about the personal guarantee. The chat went quiet. A minute later, Mom called. I answered. What is wrong with you? I corrected your message. In front of vendors? You posted it in front of vendors. You could have called me privately. I already told all of you privately. Do you enjoy humiliating your sister? No. Then delete that. I can't delete it from other people's phones. You know what I mean. I'm not retracting it. Mom lowered her voice. People are asking questions now. They should understand the financing isn't complete. Vendors don't need to understand family details. A personal guarantee isn't a family detail. To us, it is. That's the problem. She stopped speaking. When she continued, her voice was calmer. Your father and I transferred the gift. I sat back. All of it? The amount on the revised form, $25,600? Yes. Where did you get it? That's none of your business. You need help with an electric bill, but you can transfer more than $25,000 to Caitlin. We didn't need help paying it. We needed help fixing the account. That's not what Dad said. We had savings. We made choices. After I told you I hadn't agreed, we invested in our daughter. You invested before the loan was final. We trusted you. No, you created a cost and expected me to absorb it. Mom's voice shook. Your father delayed things we needed. I gave up things too. We did that because this family believes in Caitlin. I let the sentence sit. What have you ever given up for me? I asked. The question came out before I could stop it. Mom answered quickly. I raised you. I closed my eyes. She must have heard what she'd said because her next words were softer. You know that isn't what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You were always capable. You didn't need the same kind of help. I needed college money. You got an education. I worked mornings and took classes in the afternoon because you told me the fund was gone. And look at what you built. That doesn't make your decision right. I'm not discussing this while you're emotional. I was sitting alone at my desk, speaking quietly. "Did Grandma send you $48,000? The line went silent. Mom knew the number now. I hadn't planned to tell her. The question came from anger, and I regretted it immediately. "Is that what she told you?" Mom asked. "Did she?" "She's confused. She has records." I shouldn't have said that either. Mom's breathing changed. "What records? I'm not discussing this while you're emotional." I ended the call. My hands were shaking. I put them flat on the desk until they stopped. I had exposed more than I intended. Mom now knew Grandma had documentation and knew the total. The advantage of letting her speak without seeing the proof was gone. 5 minutes later, Grandma called. "Lisa just called me. I'm sorry. What did you tell her? That you have records. Anything else?" "The total." Grandma was silent. "I shouldn't have," I said. "No, you shouldn't have." "I know." "She asked me to stay out of the bakery meeting. Are you going to?" "I haven't decided. That hurt more than I expected." "Why not?" "Because you're using my records in a decision about a loan. I haven't used them." "You asked Lisa about the total. I asked whether she received it. You told me you wanted to understand what you were refusing. That is different from holding old checks over someone until they give you the answer you want. I'm not doing that, aren't you?" I didn't answer. Grandma's question was fair. If I made my signature conditional on Mom confessing, then the guarantee became a bargaining tool. I could force words out of her, but I couldn't make them honest. "I don't want to trade the signature for an explanation," I said. "Then don't." "What if she never admits anything?" "Decide based on what you know. And the checks? They prove I sent money for you. They don't make the bakery loan safe. I know. Do you?" "Yes." Grandma's voice softened. "Call me tonight." She ended the call. At 5, Dad was waiting beside my car in the garage. He must have followed someone through the secured entrance. He stood near the driver's door with both hands in his pockets. "You told your mother Dawn has records." "Yes." "What kind?" "Checks." His face lost color. "You knew Grandma sent them." "I knew she contributed. She sent $48,000. Dad leaned against the concrete wall. "I didn't know it was that much." "Did Mom?" "I don't know. Stop saying that. I wasn't managing the account." "You knew she moved money to Caitlin. I knew she helped with the salon. Did you think the money came from somewhere else?" "I didn't think about it. That was a choice." He looked toward the elevator. "Your mother believes you're going to refuse the bakery loan in front of everyone. I haven't decided where I'll do it. You're really considering letting it fail. It isn't my loan. Caitlin has orders. Your mother and I put in our savings. Vendors are expecting the shop to open. You did all of that after I said I hadn't agreed. We thought you'd come around." "Why?" "Because you always do. At least that was honest." Dad moved away from the wall. "If you refuse now, your mother may never forgive you." The sentence landed exactly where he intended. For years, I'd believed there was a version of me who could finally earn equal treatment. She was helpful without being difficult, careful without asking embarrassing questions, successful enough to rescue everyone, but never successful in a way that made Caitlin feel small. That version of me had no final task. There was always another payment, form, or emergency waiting. "What about you?" I asked. "Will you forgive me?" Dad looked tired. "I don't want to be put in the middle. You've been in the middle for 13 years. You just keep facing Mom's direction." He flinched. Then he stepped aside so I could reach my car. "Think about what this will cost," he said. "I am." He walked toward the elevator. I drove home without turning on the radio. The real loss wasn't Sunday dinner or the messages in the family chat. It was the last belief that being useful could eventually make them treat me fairly. That belief had kept me available. Without it, I could finally see the price of refusing clearly. The bakery might not open. Mom and Dad might lose part of what they had already spent. Vendors and relatives might believe I waited until the last moment out of jealousy. Caitlin might hate me. Mom might never forgive me. I called Grandma when I got home. "I'm going to the preview brunch," I said. "Have you decided about the guarantee?" I'm not signing because they spent money expecting me to surrender. And the file? Bring it. What do you plan to do with it? Nothing unless Mom lies again. Grandma was quiet for several seconds. Then she said, "All right." I sat at my kitchen table with Evan's written conditions in front of me. My signature was still the only leverage. Using it meant accepting that the family might call my refusal the damage, even though they had built everything around an answer I never gave. I accepted that price. Then I confirmed my attendance. Evan called me the next morning. "I received your attendance confirmation," he said. "Before I prepare the closing folder, I want to make sure you understand where the file stands." "I do, but I want to verify something." "Go ahead." "Has any loan money been released?" "No." "Can any of it be released before I sign?" "No." "What if Caitlin signs her documents and I don't sign mine?" "The loan will not fund." "Could the lender give her part of the amount?" "Not under this approval." "And if I refuse at the bakery?" We would close the file as unfunded unless another qualified guarantor was approved before the deadline. "Has anyone applied to replace me?" "No." That removed the last uncertainty. The family gift had been transferred. The contractor had completed some work. Caitlin had placed orders. None of that changed the lender's condition. The loan existed only as an approval on paper until I signed the guarantee. Evan continued. "I need to ask directly. Do you want me to cancel the signing appointment?" I looked at the printed conditions on my table. "No." "Are you planning to sign?" "I'm planning to make the decision there." There was a pause. "That's your right. I just want to be clear that I'm attending to execute documents, not mediate a family disagreement. I understand. If you decline, I'll confirm the funding condition and leave. I won't discuss anyone's private credit information in front of guests. That's all I need." He said he would arrive at 11. The final closing folder would contain the conditional approval, loan documents for Caitlin, and the unsigned personal guarantee form for me. Nothing would be dated as funded unless all required signatures were complete. After the call, he emailed the guarantee language. I read every page. It did not say I was helping for the first year. It did not limit my responsibility to a missed payment or a temporary problem. If Copper Mesa Bakery failed to repay, the lender could seek the unpaid amount from me under the guarantee. I printed it and put it beside my community college diploma on the small desk in my bedroom. The diploma was framed in black plastic. I'd bought the frame at the office supply store where I worked mornings. The employee discount saved me a few dollars. I hadn't looked closely at it in years. My name was centered above the degree. Nobody else's name appeared there. Mom's decision had changed the route, but she hadn't attended classes after an opening shift. Caitlin hadn't studied during lunch breaks. Dad hadn't sat in a parked car eating crackers between work and an evening exam. I had done that. Guaranteeing the bakery wouldn't repay any of it. I signed nothing. That afternoon, Mom sent me a photograph of the storefront. The counters were installed. Copper pendant lights hung above the display area. Caitlin stood in the center wearing an apron with the bakery name embroidered across the chest. Mom wrote, "Look what your sister built." I didn't respond. A few minutes later, she sent another message. "We saved you a matching apron for Saturday." I wrote, "I won't be wearing an apron." She called, "You don't have to be so cold. I'm attending as a guest and possible guarantor. I'm not staff. You're her sister." "Yes, then act like it." "What does that mean?" "Stand with her, smile, let her enjoy the day. I can be polite." "She needs more than polite." "I'm not responsible for her feelings about the loan." "This isn't only about the loan." "I know." Mom became quiet. Then she said, "Is Dawn coming?" "Yes." "Did you invite her?" I told her the time. I asked her not to involve herself. "She's family. Don't play games with me, I'm not. If she brings those old papers into Caitlin's preview, you'll embarrass everyone. You could prevent that. How?" "Answer her honestly." "I already did. Then you have nothing to worry about." Mom ended the call. Less than an hour later, Caitlin sent me a voice message. She was speaking quietly, probably from the storefront. I don't know what you think is going to happen Saturday, but this is my business. Vendors are coming. The landlord is coming. People placed orders because they believe we're opening. If you and Grandma turn this into some confrontation about Mom, I will never forgive you. I'm serious. Whatever issue you have, handle it somewhere else. I listened twice. The easiest response would have been to forward it to the family chat and tell everyone the signing was in doubt. That would have ended the celebration before it began. Vendors could have protected themselves. Relatives would have arrived knowing there was a dispute. It also would have punished Caitlin in advance for an admission Mom hadn't made. I deleted the forwarding draft. Then I called her. I'm not bringing the issue into your preview unless Mom lies. You're already planning questions? Yes. Why does it have to happen there? Because that's where you scheduled my signature. You could talk to Mom tomorrow. She won't answer. Then refuse privately. Don't ruin the brunch. I looked at the guarantee on my desk. If I refuse privately tonight, what will Mom tell everyone? I don't know. She'll say I changed my mind at the last minute. Didn't you? No. I never said yes. Caitlin let out a long breath. You knew we were spending money. You knew I hadn't committed. We thought once you saw the approval, you'd understand this was real. I understood it was real when the lender explained I'd owe the debt. You make it sound like I'm definitely going to fail. I'm saying failure is possible. That's why the bank wants me. I need one person in this family to believe in me. You have Mom and Dad. I need you. No, you need my credit. That is such an ugly way to say it. It's the accurate way. She started crying. I stayed quiet. In the past, that would have ended the conversation. I would have softened my words until she could stop feeling what I'd said. This time, I waited. After a while, she said, If you refuse, I lose the storefront. The loan won't fund. The lease will keep charging rent. I can't finish the kitchen. I'll have to cancel orders. I know. Mom and Dad put their savings in. I know. And you can live with that? That was the harder question. I didn't enjoy any part of it. I didn't want to stand in an unfinished bakery and watch her plans stop. I didn't want my parents to lose money even after what they had done. But signing would turn their decision into my debt. Yes, I said. I can live with refusing a loan I never promised to guarantee. Caitlin stopped crying. Then why are you coming? To hear the truth before I decide what contact we have after this. She hung up. That was the permanent cost. The signature would decide the loan. My questions would decide whether I still had a family relationship worth protecting. On Friday evening, Grandma came over without the file box. She carried the indexed list in a plain envelope. We sat at the kitchen table and reviewed it one final time. Dates, check numbers, amounts, memo lines, and clearing dates. The total matched. Where's the box? I asked. At home. You're still bringing it. If you still want me to. I do. Grandma folded her hands over the envelope. What do you want me to say? Ask Mom whether she received the full fund. I already asked her. Ask in front of me. And if she lies, lay out the checks. All of them? Yes. What happens after that? I ask where the money went. Grandma studied me. And if Lisa refuses to answer? I refuse the guarantee and leave. What if she answers? That depends on the answer. You already know you aren't signing. I looked at her. Yes. Then why make her answer first? Because I need Caitlin to hear it from Mom. I need Dad to hear himself defend it if he chooses to. I'm not spending the next 10 years listening to them say I misunderstood. Grandma nodded slowly. That's a reason. It isn't revenge. No, but it will hurt. I know. You could show the checks to everyone as soon as you arrive. I won't. You could tell the vendors before the signing. I won't do that either. Why not? Because the records answer one question. They don't prove where the money went. Grandma's expression softened. Good. I didn't want a larger punishment than the truth supported. I could have posted copies online. I could have called relatives and described Mom as a thief. I could have let people assume every salon purchase came directly from my fund. I still didn't know that. The checks proved one thing. Mom received the entire $48,000 Grandma designated for my education. Dad had confirmed a second thing. Mom moved family money to Caitlin after the salon financing failed. Only Mom could connect those facts honestly. Saturday morning, I woke before my alarm. I made coffee, showered, and dressed in black pants and a blue blouse. I didn't wear the earrings Mom had given me for my birthday. That wasn't a statement. I simply didn't want to touch anything from her while I prepared to ask what she'd done. At 8:30, Evan emailed to confirm he had the closing folder. At 9, Dad texted, "Please come early. Your mother wants a family photo before guests arrive." I replied, "I'll arrive at 10:45. The brunch began at 10:30. The signing was scheduled for 11. Grandma called at 10. The box is in my car. Keep it locked until you're inside. I know how to carry a file box. I know. Are you ready? No. Good. People who feel ready for this usually say too much. I almost smiled. I'll meet you there. Before leaving, I placed Evan's email in my bag. I also brought my printed copy of the guarantee. I didn't need either one to refuse, but I wanted the rule in front of me if Mom tried to turn it into an emotional promise. The drive to West Main Street took 20 minutes. Cars filled most of the spaces near the storefront. Through the front windows, I could see relatives holding coffee cups and vendors standing near the pastry tables. Caitlin moved between them in her embroidered apron. The copper sign was fully unwrapped now. Grandma parked 2 spaces away. She opened her back door and lifted out the locked file box. I met her on the sidewalk and took one handle. Together we carried it toward the bakery. The front door was propped open with a bag of flour. Warm air came from inside, carrying coffee and cinnamon. Someone had arranged small cactus plants between the pastry trays. The display case was installed but empty, and a strip of unfinished flooring remained visible near the kitchen entrance. Grandma and I carried the box through the doorway. Mom saw us first. Her smile stayed in place, but her eyes dropped to the black metal box. "What's that?" Caitlin asked. "Dawn's records," I said. Mom came toward us quickly. "This is not the time." "The signing is the time," Grandma said. Several people near the coffee table looked over. Mom touched Grandma's elbow. "Can we put that in the car?" "No. Please don't create a scene." Grandma looked at her hand until Mom removed it. Caitlin stepped between us and the guests. "Whatever this is, can it wait 20 minutes?" "That depends on your mother," Grandma said. Caitlin looked at me. "You promised you wouldn't ruin the brunch." I said I wouldn't raise it unless Mom lied. She hasn't said anything. Then she has nothing to worry about. Dad came from the back room carrying a roll of paper towels. When he saw the box, he stopped. Mom looked at him. "You told her?" "I didn't know Dawn had all that." "You knew she had records. I knew she had checks." Their voices were quiet, but not quiet enough. A relative near the pastry table began rearranging napkins that didn't need rearranging. 2 vendors stepped closer to the front window. Caitlin pressed both hands against her apron. "People are here for me." "I know," I said. "Then act normal." Before I could answer, Mom raised her voice and clapped her hands. "Family photo." It was so sudden that several people turned and smiled automatically. Mom directed Dad beside the copper sign. She placed Caitlin in the middle, then waved me over. "Alexis, come stand by your sister." I left the file box with Grandma and joined them. Mom tried to hand me the matching apron. "No, thank you. It's only for the picture. I'm not part of the bakery." Her smile tightened. "Please don't start. I'm standing here." I stood beside Caitlin without the apron. Dad placed one hand lightly behind my shoulder. Mom stood on Caitlin's other side. Someone took 3 photographs. In the first one, Caitlin was smiling. In the second, Mom was looking at me. In the third, nobody was pretending anymore except Dad. After the picture, Caitlin moved behind the display counter. She tapped a spoon against a coffee mug. "Can I have everybody's attention?" The room settled. I returned to Grandma's side. Caitlin thanked the landlord, the contractor, and the vendors. She thanked Mom and Dad for investing in her. Then she looked toward me, and my sister helped turn all my messy ideas into something the bank could understand. A few people laughed. Caitlin smiled at me. She acts tough, but she always comes through. Mom nodded. That's Alexis. The statement moved through the room as if the signing had already happened. Caitlin continued. This bakery has been my dream for a long time. There were points when I honestly thought it wouldn't happen, but my family believed in me. Today, we make it official. People applauded. Grandma didn't. I kept my hands at my sides. That was the false version, spoken completely enough for everyone to understand it. Caitlin had built the dream. Mom and Dad had invested. I had organized the details and would come through when needed. Nobody mentioned that my credit was the condition holding the loan together. At 11, Evan entered with a dark closing folder under one arm. Caitlin hurried over and greeted him like he was an honored guest. Mom offered him coffee. He declined and asked where they wanted to complete the documents. A small table had been placed near the front windows. 2 chairs faced the guests. That hadn't been there during my earlier visits. Evan put the folder on the table. I'll need to explain each signature, he said. This may take a little time. We understand, Mom said. He looked at me. Are you comfortable proceeding here? I'm comfortable reviewing the documents. Mom spoke before he could respond. She's ready. I pulled out one chair. I'll answer for myself. The room quieted again. Evan sat across from us and opened the closing folder. He confirmed Caitlin's identity, reviewed the loan amount, and explained that the approval remained subject to all conditions. He did not make it sound ceremonial. Caitlin signed the borrower documents where he indicated. Her hand moved quickly. She barely looked at the pages. Dad stood behind her chair. Mom watched me. When Caitlin finished, Evan placed her documents back in the folder. Then he removed the personal guarantee form. The yellow signature tab was exactly where I remembered it from the opening of this story. He placed the form in front of me. This is the required guarantee we discussed, he said. The loan cannot fund without the guarantor's signature. Mom stepped closer. Grandma lifted the file box onto the table. The metal bottom made a hard sound against the wood. Before Alexis signs, she said, Lisa needs to answer me. Evan looked at me. Do you want to pause? Yes. He closed his pen and leaned back. Mom's face had gone pale. This has nothing to do with the loan, she said. It has everything to do with asking her to trust you, Grandma replied. Caitlin stood. Grandma, please. Grandma kept her eyes on Mom. Did you receive the full education fund I sent for Alexis? Mom glanced at the people standing around us. No. Grandma waited. Mom continued. You helped when you could. There were gaps. Family expenses increased, and Alexis decided to stay in Mesa. That isn't what I asked, Grandma said. I did not receive the amount you now claim. Grandma took a key from her purse. Mom moved closer. Dawn, don't. Grandma unlocked the box. Inside, the hanging folders remained arranged by year. She removed the first one and set it beside the guarantee form, then the second, then the third. What are those? One of the relatives asked. Grandma opened the first folder. I kept every cleared check. She removed the protected copies one at a time and placed them in rows across the table. The room became completely silent. Each check showed Grandma's name, Mom's endorsement, the amount, and a memo line describing my education. Mom watched the rows spread toward her. Grandma placed the final check beside the conditional approval. $48,000, she said. The last check cleared before Alexis finished high school. Dad leaned over the table. He picked up one sleeve, read it, and put it down. Caitlin didn't move. Grandma slid the index across to Mom. No gaps, she said. No missing years. No stopped contribution. Mom's eyes moved along the dates. You don't understand what things were like then. Did you receive these checks? Grandma asked. Mom looked at the guests. This is a private family matter. You denied receiving them in private. I said the money wasn't sitting in a separate account. That wasn't the question. Mom's mouth tightened. Yes, I deposited the checks. There it was. A few people shifted near the door. One vendor lowered his coffee cup without drinking. I looked at Mom. Where did the money go? She folded her arms. We had obligations. What obligation used $48,000? You were 18. You didn't understand the pressure we were under. Where did it go? Dad stepped forward. Alexis, enough. No. His eyes dropped to the checks. I asked Mom again. Where did it go? Caitlin's face had changed. She wasn't looking at me now. She was looking at Mom. Mom reached for the index. Grandma placed her hand over it. Answer her, Grandma said. Mom's voice came out low. Caitlin's salon financing failed. Caitlin closed her eyes. I heard someone near the window whisper, then stop. What did that have to do with my fund? I asked. Mom looked at Caitlin. She had already signed the lease. She had equipment ordered. If we didn't help, she would lose everything. What did you do? Mom's shoulders lowered. I transferred the money to Caitlin. The room seemed smaller after that. I looked at my sister. She stared at the floor. All of it? I asked. Mom nodded. Say it. All of it. I turned to Caitlin. Did you know it was for my education? She pressed her lips together. Caitlin? Yes. The word was barely audible. Mom stepped beside her. She knew Dawn had put money aside for you. She didn't know every detail. You knew enough, I said. Caitlin looked up. Mom said you could stay here and work. She said you had another option. I had another option because I worked for it. I was 21. So was the salon more important than college? No. Then why didn't you tell me? Caitlin looked at Mom again. Mom answered, because it was her fresh start. The exact words landed beside the checks. Mom continued before anyone could respond. Caitlin needed one real chance. You were always capable. You knew how to work. You knew how to adjust. Dad moved beside her. We made a family decision. No, I said. You made it. I should have spoken up, he said. But the salon was already committed. And I wasn't? You hadn't started classes yet. I had accepted admission. Mom's voice sharpened. And you still got your degree. I looked at the guarantee form. That was their whole defense. They had taken from me because they believed I would survive it. Now they wanted me to risk more because surviving had made me useful. Caitlin came around the table. If you refuse now, you waste everything we've invested. I met her eyes. You knew what that money was for and you let me work through school without telling me. I was scared. So was I. Then you know what this bakery means. Yes. I turned the guarantee form back toward Evan. Surviving your choice does not obligate me to ensure the next one. Mom said my name. I didn't look at her. I will not sign the personal guarantee. Evan nodded once. All right. Caitlin reached for the chair. What does that mean right now? He closed the unsigned form inside the folder. The required guarantor condition has not been met. The loan cannot fund. Can we reschedule? Mom asked. Only if Alexis chooses to sign before the approval expires or another qualified guarantor completes review in time. She won't, I said. Evan looked at me to confirm. No, I said, I won't. He secured the remaining papers in the closing folder and stood. Then the conditional approval will expire unfunded. Caitlin stared at him. You're just leaving? My function here was to execute the loan documents. I can't remove the lender's condition. He thanked her for her time, picked up the closing folder and walked toward the door. Nobody applauded. The pastries remained untouched along the wall. Through the front window, I watched Evan cross the parking lot carrying the unsigned guarantee away from Copper Mesa Bakery. The door closed behind him. Caitlin turned to me. Get out, Mom said. Not yet. I couldn't tell whether she wanted me to stay for an argument or because leaving would make the refusal final. Grandma began returning the checks to their folders. Caitlin pointed at the door. You planned this. I planned to ask Mom. You brought an audience. You invited the audience. This was supposed to be the best day of my life. Grandma slid another check into its sleeve. This was supposed to be Alexis's education. Caitlin looked at her. You chose her. No, Grandma said. I kept my records. Mom moved to the table. Put those away. I am. You had no right to bring them here. They're my checks. This was a family decision. You used money I designated for Alexis. You gave it to me. For a stated purpose. Mom looked around the room. Several relatives were avoiding her eyes. The vendors had begun moving toward the door. One of them quietly asked Caitlin when she would know whether existing orders could still be completed. Caitlin pressed both hands to her forehead. I don't know. The vendor nodded and left. That was the first practical consequence. People stopped treating the bakery like an opening business and started treating it like a risk. Dad approached the pastry table. We should pack this food. Mom stared at him. That's what you have to say? We can't leave it sitting here. You admitted everything. I didn't admit the transfer. You told Alexis I moved money. Dad looked at me. I told her you helped Caitlin. You gave her enough to come here searching. Because she kept asking. The way he said it made the problem sound like my persistence. I picked up my bag. Mom turned toward me. You don't get to walk away after doing this. I'm leaving because Caitlin asked me to. You could have refused privately. I tried to discuss it privately. You wanted to humiliate us. I wanted you to answer, and now you have your answer. Does it feel good? No. That seemed to upset her more. If I had looked pleased, she could have made the whole thing about cruelty. My lack of satisfaction left her with the checks. Caitlin pulled off her apron and threw it onto the counter. Do you know how many people are expecting orders? You'll need to contact them. You helped create the schedule. The schedule is in your account. I can't finish those orders without the kitchen. Then tell them. You say that like it's easy. I didn't say it was easy. You don't care. I care. I'm still not signing. She picked up the matching apron Mom had brought for me. For a second, I thought she might throw that, too. Instead, she folded it once and pushed it into a trash can beneath the counter. Don't contact me, she said. All right. She looked shocked that I accepted. Mom followed me toward the door. You're going to regret choosing paperwork over your sister. I stopped. I chose not to owe $180,000 for her business. You know, that isn't what I mean. I know exactly what you mean. Grandma locked the file box. Dad reached for one handle. I'll help. No, Grandma said. She lifted it herself. I took the other side and we carried it outside. Nobody tried to stop us. In the parking lot, Grandma set the box in her back seat and locked the car. Are you all right? She asked. I don't know yet. That's honest. Through the bakery window, I could see Dad placing pastries into cardboard boxes. Mom stood near the table where the guarantee had been. Caitlin was on the phone, probably calling a customer or vendor. They were handling what came next without me. Grandma touched my shoulder. Come eat dinner with me. I'm not hungry. Neither am I. We went anyway. At her house, we ate toast and scrambled eggs at the kitchen table. Neither of us mentioned the bakery for almost an hour. Before I left, Grandma said, Lisa may not speak to me for a while. I'm sorry, she made that choice. You wouldn't have been there if I hadn't asked. I'm 79, Alexis. You don't assign my decisions. I nodded. That was the kindest thing anyone said to me that day. The following Monday, Evan emailed official confirmation that the loan had not funded. No funds had been disbursed. The approval would expire at the end of the review period. I saved the email, then removed the bakery meeting from my calendar. Caitlin's contractor stopped work. The plumbing inspection remained incomplete, and the kitchen couldn't be used for commercial production. She canceled the corporate lunch order and refunded the deposit from the money still available in the bakery account. The family gift didn't all come back. Some of it had already gone to construction, rent, permits, and equipment deposits. Mom sent me a message blaming me for that. Your father and I lost money because you waited until the signing. I replied with the email I'd sent before they transferred anything. It stated that I had not committed. Mom answered, You knew we believed you would. I didn't continue. 2 days later, Dad called during my workday. The call stayed silent because of my phone settings. His voicemail said, Your mother needs help sorting the bakery charges from the household expenses. Call when you can. I deleted it. He called again that evening. "Did you get my message?" "Yes." "Can you help us separate the charges?" "No. It would take you an hour." I returned every organized bakery file to Caitlin. "We need to know what came from our gift." "Ask her. She's overwhelmed." "So are you. That's why I called." I stood at my kitchen counter and looked at the framed diploma on the desk across the room. I'm not managing the aftermath. Dad was silent. "I don't know how to do all of this," he said. "You can learn." "At 60? Mom reset a password last week. Caitlin found a missing payment. You can review bank charges." He sighed. "I wish you wouldn't make every conversation into a point." I said no. He ended the call without saying goodbye. That relationship didn't break loudly. Dad simply stopped calling when I stopped solving things. For the first time, I could see how much of our closeness had been built around tasks. Mom removed me from the larger family chat. A relative sent me a private message saying she hadn't known about the education money. She didn't ask me to forgive anyone. She only said the checks had changed how she understood the signing. I thanked her and left it there. Other relatives said nothing. I knew some of them believed I should have refused sooner. They weren't entirely wrong. I could have ended the loan process the day I learned about the guarantee. What they didn't understand was that I had spent 13 years being trained to wait until everyone else's need became urgent. Urgency was how my family turned my choice into duty. I didn't explain that to them. At the end of the week, I returned the last paper file to Caitlin by certified delivery. It contained the corrected projections, contractor quotes, tax checklist, and vendor notes. I kept no original business records. She signed for the package but didn't contact me. The online invitation disappeared. The Copper Mesa social page stopped posting. A handwritten note appeared on the storefront door saying the opening had been delayed. 2 weeks later, the lender's approval expired. Evan sent one final confirmation. File closed, unfunded. That was the complete financial consequence of my refusal. No surprise lender appeared. No new investor rescued the lease. No authority punished my family for the college fund. The bank simply followed the condition it had stated from the beginning. Without my signature, there was no loan. Without my unpaid work, there was no one cleaning the records behind Caitlin. She had to decide which orders she could still complete from rented kitchen space and which ones she had to cancel. Mom and Dad had to examine their own charges. They called vendors, reviewed receipts, and worked through the bakery account with Caitlin. They made mistakes. They paid one invoice twice and had to request a refund. They missed a return deadline on unopened equipment and lost part of the deposit. I knew because Dad left voicemails describing each problem. I didn't call back. Grandma stopped attending Sunday dinner. Mom told her she wasn't welcome until she apologized for the bakery scene. Grandma invited me to her house instead. We didn't call it Sunday dinner. She made soup, I brought bread, and we talked about ordinary things. Caitlin remained no contact. Mom sent messages every few days. Some were angry, some were practical. One contained a photograph of the empty bakery and the words, "I hope this was worth it." I saved the messages but didn't answer. A month after the signing, the copper sign came down. The landlord placed a notice in the window. The lease was still Caitlin's responsibility, but the storefront would not open as Copper Mesa Bakery. I drove past once on my way home from Grandma's. The paper cactus decorations had been removed. The pastry tables were gone. Through the window, I could see Mom and Dad inside with Caitlin, packing mixing bowls into boxes. For a moment, my hand moved toward the turn signal. Then Dad lifted one end of a box and Caitlin lifted the other. Mom held the door open. They managed it without me. I kept driving. 3 months passed before Dad asked to see me. He didn't ask me to come to the house. He suggested a coffee shop near my office and offered 3 different times. That mattered. I chose Saturday morning. He arrived early and had already bought his own coffee. There were no bills on the table, no password written on a scrap of paper, no bakery receipts hidden in a folder. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," he said. "Okay." He turned his cup between both hands. "Your mother and I went through the old statements we could recover. What did you find?" "Enough." He looked at me directly. "I knew the money Dawn sent was meant for you. I knew Lisa moved it after Caitlin's financing failed. I didn't know every amount, but I knew enough to stop it. I waited. I stayed quiet, he said. Then I stood there while you were told the money disappeared because the family was struggling. You were in the kitchen. I remember now. He swallowed. My silence enabled the theft. It was the first time anyone in my immediate family had used an honest word for what happened. Dad didn't ask me to forgive him. He didn't say Mom made the decision. He didn't mention the salon lease or how much money would have been wasted. What are you doing differently? I asked. He nodded as if he'd expected the question. I'm handling my own accounts. I separated the household charges from the bakery expenses. I'm also not signing or approving anything for Caitlin without reading it. That protects you. I know. What are you doing for me? His eyes dropped to the table. I told your mother I won't defend what we did anymore. That wasn't repayment. It didn't restore college or erase 13 years. But it was action that cost him something inside his marriage. I'm not ready for family dinners, I said. I understand. I'm not taking over the bills again. I know. If Mom calls and says you need help, I'll tell her to ask you. That's fair. We finished our coffee. When we stood, Dad carried his own cup to the trash. It was a small thing, I noticed anyway. Mom's first repayment arrived the following Friday. It was a transfer from her wages with a note that said, Alexis Education Repayment. The amount was modest. At that rate, $48,000 would take years. I didn't thank her. I created a spreadsheet showing the original total, each payment, and the remaining balance. Then I sent her a copy. She replied, Of course you made a spreadsheet. I didn't answer. 2 weeks later, another payment arrived, then another. She didn't skip one. After the fourth transfer, Mom asked to meet me at Grandma's house. Grandma agreed to be there. Mom brought no food and no gifts. That was unusual for her. She sat at the kitchen table with her purse in her lap. I know the payments don't fix it, she said. No, I thought I was helping Caitlin become stable. You helped her with my money. I know. And then you let me believe it disappeared in a crisis. Mom pressed her lips together. You were so capable. That isn't an explanation. No. She looked toward Grandma, then back at me. I used your capability as permission. That was closer to the truth than anything she'd said at the bakery. Then she added, But you have to understand how desperate Caitlin was. I stood. Mom looked startled. We just started talking. I'm not staying for another defense. I'm trying to explain. You've explained for 13 years. Grandma remained seated. Mom looked at her for support and didn't receive it. I picked up my bag. You can keep making the repayments. That doesn't buy access to me. I'm your mother. Yes. Does that mean nothing now? It means I gave you more chances than I would have given anyone else. I left. That was the first test, and Mom failed it. She still made the next payment. A month later, she asked again. This time, we met at the same coffee shop where I'd met Dad. She ordered for herself and waited until I arrived. I'm not going to explain Caitlin, she said. Okay, I made the decision. Your father's silence helped, but I made it. I sat down. She didn't cry. She didn't say she'd raised me. She didn't point to my career as evidence that the theft had worked out. I knew the checks were for you, she said. I gave the money to Caitlin anyway. Then I lied because telling you would have changed how you saw me. It did. I know. She continued the repayments. I allowed one phone call a week. If she asked me to fix an account, review a bill, or contact someone for her, I ended the call. The first time, she accused me of being rigid. The second time, she stopped herself and said, I'll handle it. The third time, she didn't ask. Caitlin took longer. For almost 5 months, I heard nothing from her directly. Grandma occasionally mentioned that Caitlin was doing small catering jobs from rented kitchen space. She made birthday cakes, office trays, and weekend dessert orders. There was no storefront, no copper sign, no large loan. She accepted only the work she could complete. Then an envelope arrived at my apartment. Inside was the matching bakery apron she'd thrown into the trash at the preview. It had been washed and folded. There was also a handwritten note. I knew the salon money was meant for your education. Mom told me you would be fine because you were practical. I wanted to believe that made it acceptable. It didn't. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you for anything. I read it twice. Then I put it in the dated folder. I didn't call her. 2 weeks later, she sent a second note. This one contained a list of the bakery expenses Mom and Dad had paid, the refunds she'd recovered, and what she was repaying them from catering work. She wasn't asking me to check the math. That mattered more than the apology. I sent one text. I received both notes. She replied, "Thank you for telling me." Nothing else. A month after that, we met for coffee. Caitlin looked different without Mom beside her, quieter. She paid for her own drink before I arrived. I turned down a wedding order last week, she said. Why? It was too large for the kitchen time I could rent. The old you would have accepted it, I know. She looked down at her cup. I kept thinking I needed one big thing to fix everything. The salon, the bakery, a huge order. Then everyone else had to carry whatever I couldn't. I didn't reassure her. Are you repaying Mom and Dad? Yes. Are you repaying me? Her face tightened. I can't do both right now. Then don't promise what you can't do. I won't. That was the second test. She didn't ask me to review her catering records. She didn't ask for money. When Mom later suggested I could help Caitlin build a new budget, Caitlin told her no before I had to. I allowed limited contact, coffee once a month, a text on birthdays, no shared finances, no business help. Dad began coming to Grandma's for Sunday soup sometimes. Mom came later after 6 months of consistent repayments. Caitlin came once and brought bread she had purchased instead of using the visit to advertise her catering. Nobody called it a return to normal. Normal was the system that had made all of this possible. The repayments continued. The relationships remained conditional. I stopped measuring family closeness by how many problems people trusted me to solve. Being dependable had never made their choices my responsibility. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and tell me which city you're watching from. Near the end of the year, Grandma brought the black file box to my apartment. She had replaced the old metal latch and made 2 complete copies of the index. One stayed with her. She gave the original archive to me. These belong with the person they were meant to protect, she said. I cleared space in the desk beneath my diploma. The drawer still held old course schedules, a faded employee discount card from the office supply store, and the first calculator I'd used during community college. I moved those items into a smaller box. Grandma stood beside me while I checked the folders one last time. The clear sleeves were labeled by year. Every check remained in order. Mom's repayment spreadsheet rested in the final folder behind the copy of the lender's unfunded notice. I didn't display the checks for visitors. I didn't need to see them every day. Proof had done its job. After Grandma left, I sat at the desk for a few minutes. The diploma was still in its black plastic frame. My name was centered above the degree I had earned through the route my family left me. I placed Dawn's check archive beside my framed community college diploma and closed the desk drawer.